Hey everyone. Hope you're all doing well. We're all about bringing high-quality web novel audiobooks to life, and most of our content is completely free to enjoy. Just a quick note, web novels and web novel audiobooks aren't the same thing. Simply reading a novel out loud doesn't always make for a great listening experience. That's why I go through multiple rounds of rewriting and careful editing for every chapter to make sure the narration flows naturally and immerses you in the story, just like reading it yourself. These audiobooks are not just direct copies of the original novels. I've adapted them for a smoother, more engaging experience. And to be fully transparent, these adaptations are made for commercial purposes, so some chapters are paid content. But don't worry, this process is fully copyright compliant. I do all of this because I truly love web novels and audiobooks. I'm a huge fan, and this story is one of my personal favorites. YouTube update: recently, YouTube flagged some of our content for including mature themes, realistic violence, and darker story elements. As a result, we've decided to stop uploading anything that violates YouTube's guidelines. If you'd like access to the full, uncut versions including the more intense or mature content, you can find them on our Patreon page, where we upload everything first. Available now on Patreon: I Am a Legendary Boss audiobook, Versatile Mage starting with the White Tiger Pendant, Naruto the Wind Calamity, the Necromancer is amassing troops like crazy in the apocalypse, the mighty dragons are dead, Naruto, leader of Hidden Grass Village, Naruto Uchiha's Unserious Saga, your lord has a screw loose, Apocalypse I can see the health point bar, killing monsters drops loot, Starsea Fleet Age of the Lord, my monster fuses everything, Naruto, I traveled with a max level account, Fate in Bleach Unlimited Blade Works, killed for 100 years in Hueco Mundo, Aizen invited me to Soul Society, the world conquest giving birth to become a god, my master only breaks through on the edge of death, Bleach the Invincible Slacker from Rukongai, Naruto's Special Shop, One Piece the strongest female pirate cruise, Reborn as Danzō's grandson, must I offend the entire ninja world, Naruto starting with snatching the Mangekyo Sharingan, Naruto Card King, in Hueco Mundo with Shindu template, Naruto the Hidden Danzō, my journey as 4th Kusagakure, Naruto Troublesome Ninja Haruto, Naruto the Hyuga Mastermind, Bleach the strongest Shinigami, Bleach the 5th Division Captain, Fate Ultimate Antagonist, Fate of DXD, Fate I Heard After Death, you can ascend to the throne of heroes, Fate DXD Archer Reborn, Fate beginning with Type Moon, a Berserk Heart, Fate Grand Order Insert, One Piece take the Uchiha clan to the Grand Line, One Piece don't worry, I'm a doctor, building harem and dungeon with monster girls, DXD, Multiverse the day-to-day life of the Sephiroth hero, I'm the bad guy but heroines are obsessed with me, in Naruto, I have an affair with Mikoto and Kushina, many children bring happiness, a shameless start, Naruto Reborn with a Tenseigan, Naruto sleeping Invincible, One Piece, life choice ask me to kiss marine goddess Hina, reborn as the genius son of the richest family, start by eating jacket fruit model, jacket human devil fruit, the days of being the richest man in the ninja world, the Witcher and Madara Uchiha, villain I possess the dragon Yang Dao physique, all saintesses turns into villainesses, all beautiful girls want to stick with me, interdimensional farming in another world, Naruto from Hidden Leaf Village to One Piece, and more. Most of our content there is free, and it's the best place to follow and support our work. The default audio speed is set to 3x, but if that's too fast for you, just let me know, I'm happy to adjust it. Got a favorite web novel you'd love to hear as an audiobook? Drop a suggestion. I'm always open to new ideas. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter, X for the latest updates, new releases, and behind-the-scenes content. Thanks so much for your continued support and happy listening. Chapter 1, Just Transmigrated and Already Dying? What sort of human sorrow is this? 1 Fang Dynasty, Huaishui County, Qingxi Town. Within Luo family ancestral land in Qingxi Town, known as one of the 4 great families. Luo Qingfeng was struggling to open a pair of somewhat cloudy and unclear eyes. He lay half reclining on an ancient Taishi chair, where the lacquer had come off in several places, not knowing how many years it had existed. In front of him stood 3 middle-aged men with different expressions. The constant noise of animated discussion was carried into his somewhat sluggish mind. I have transmigrated? Luo Qingfeng looked at the 2 people in front of him who were arguing non-stop and at the silent one. He then looked at his own arm, which was extremely withered, covered in wrinkles, and as rough as tree bark. He confirmed once again the fact that he had transmigrated to another world. But, with transmigration set aside, why is it that when others transmigrate, they are either the young master of a family or the son of a sect leader? And if not that lofty, at least they are the core disciples or the direct disciples of a great sect. Generally, their safety is somewhat assured. But he, Luo Qingfeng, had transmigrated into the ancestor of the Wu family whose lifespan was nearly exhausted, and was already half into the grave. I mean, what is this all about? Ancestor, the Da dynasty is already in chaos, and now after years of severe drought, countless commoners have started rebelling. If our Luo family fails to act at this time, with the passage of time, we will surely be destroyed by others and become mere dust in history. Among the three middle-aged men in front of him, stood Luo Yang, who was 2 meters tall and had a physique as robust as a tiger or wolf. His face was covered with fleshy scars, even sporting a fierce slash mark. Seeing that he was somewhat at a loss for words, he turned his head and spoke to the ancestor of the Luo family, Luo Qingfeng, with some agitation. Ancestor, although what the third brother has said is true, the Da dynasty is still the Da dynasty after all. The old saying goes, a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. If our Luo family becomes targeted by the people in the Da dynasty for gathering a rebellion, becoming that conspicuous target, our Luo family will certainly face destruction as the inevitable outcome. In the somewhat dimly lit room, clothed in a Confucian robe, with a height of about 1.80 m, the seemingly frail Luoan was already disregarding his own dignity, hurriedly speaking in detail to his ancestor sitting in front of him. And in front of these two, dressed in blue, expressionless, and with an aura of majesty faintly radiating from him, the current family head of the Luo family, Luo Ping, appeared as if he was an unconcerned person, simply bowing his head slightly, his eyes on his nose on his heart, without any intention of joining the discussion of the two brothers beside him. Enough. Seeing that Luo Yang and Luoan seemed to want to continue bickering, Luo Qingfeng frowned slightly and stopped their argument. He also extended his hand somewhat helplessly and massaged his temples. As one ages, one cannot stand the quarreling of others. You two, leave us, Luo Qingfeng said after massaging for a while, until his head hurt less. He then spoke to Luo Yang and Luoan in a lower voice. But, ancestor. Luo Yang swallowed hard, hesitating. He seemed to want to persuade his ancestor of something else. Based on his understanding and judgment of the current state of the world, choosing to absorb the refugees and build up his own strength was definitely a great choice. Even if they did not rebel, couldn't they at least protect themselves in this chaotic world? I have said, step back. Luo Qingfeng lifted his head slightly, his expression growing colder as he looked at Luo Yang before him. But Luo Yang stopped mid-sentence. Finally, under the cold gaze of his ancestor, he reluctantly and rather angrily turned away. Silently, he walked towards the exit of this room. Dressed in a scholar's robe, the somewhat frail Luoan, upon seeing this, gave a fist and palm salute to the ancestor of the Luo family before also leaving the room. Following the departure of Luo Yang and Luoan, the dim room gradually became quieter. It even became so quiet that the sound of breathing could be clearly heard in one's ears. Ancestor, if there's nothing else, I will take my leave. Luo Ping said, bowing slightly, his expression full of respect. Wait, Luo Qingfeng said while narrowing his eyes, carefully observing the current family head of the Luo family in front of him. The former ancestor of the Luo family may not have been too sharp-witted, perhaps not understanding the implication of bringing the other two brothers here. But Luo Qingfeng, as a transmigrator, how could he not fathom what this little fellow meant? It was nothing more than trying to kick this difficult problem over to his side. And have him, the ancestor of the Luo family, balance the conflict between Luo Yang and Luoan. You must have heard everything Luo Yang and Luoan said. What are your thoughts on this matter? After a long silence, Luo Qingfeng finally sorted out his chaotic thoughts through his somewhat dull brain. He then asked the current family head of the Luo family, Luo Ping, in a low voice. This. Luo Ping, somewhat surprised, raised his head and stole a glance at the ancestor sitting in the principal seat. Then he lowered his head again. He seemed to be astonished that his family's ancestor would ask him such a question. Just speak plainly, said Luo Qingfeng, seeing that Luo Ping was hesitating in his speech, prompting him to speak again. Ancestor, since it's like this, I will speak frankly. The third younger brother is right, in chaotic times, possessing military authority is very important. But the second brother's words also make sense. The Da dynasty is still the Da dynasty after all, its foundations remain. Being the first to stand out is not an enviable position. So, as he spoke, Luo Ping once again quietly raised his head, carefully glancing at the ancestor's expression. Seeing that his ancestor still had his eyes slightly narrowed, his expression unchanged, he couldn't help feeling increasingly nervous, to the point where he didn't even dare to take a deep breath. Although Luo Qingfeng was somewhat unsatisfied with the current family head's response, he eventually still allowed the young man to leave. Then, after about half an hour of deep contemplation, Luo Qingfeng finally cleared all the memories in his mind. The situation of the Da dynasty was already not good. Now, there had been a great drought for several years. Officials were greedy, exploiting the common people crazily, Some people seized the opportunity to rebel, some became bandits taking to the mountains, declaring themselves kings. Others, unable to afford food, resorted to cannibalism by trading their children for grain. The saying, "Behind the vermilion doors meat and wine go to waste, while out on the roads lie the frozen bones," couldn't be more appropriate to describe the present times. Even though Huaishui County is located by the Hui River, with a reasonably sufficient water supply, Qingxi Town lies within this Huaishui County. The officials within the town impose some limits on their exploitation of the people. Yet the lives of the commoners in Qingxi Town are still extremely difficult. However, no matter the current state of the Da Feng dynasty, what does it have to do with him, the ancestor of the Wu family, whose longevity is nearing its end, whose vitality is so depleted that just walking is difficult, and who is, in fact, halfway into the grave? To transmigrate only to die? What sort of human suffering is this? Chapter 2, A Golden Finger for Consuming Tribesmen's Vitality and Blood Points? 1. What should I do? Am I really going to wait for death within the Luo family ancestral land? Luo Qingfeng felt an even greater headache at the thought. Although he didn't know exactly how long he could still live, based on his current condition, a month would probably be generous. As for that so-called elixir of miracle cure that could extend one's life, of course Luo Qingfeng would want it if it were possible. But the problem was, were such life-extending elixirs and spiritual medicine something someone like him, the ancestor of a minor family clan, could even possess? Before transmigration, I really wanted to transmigrate. But now that I actually have, I do have some regrets. At least, living a few more decades shouldn't have been a problem before the transmigration. Within the slightly dim room, Luo Qingfeng let out a breath that was somewhat turbid. Just as he was about to stand up and go out for a walk to take a look around, a semi-transparent system interface suddenly appeared before his eyes. Name, Luo Qingfeng. P.S. Ancestor of the Wu family, one of the 4 great families of Qingxi Town. Lifespan, 7 days plus. P.S. Remaining time, cultivation, initial realm of bone refinement plus. P.S. 1. Each realm is divided into initial realm, intermediate stage, refining stage, and perfection. P.S. Host's peak cultivation was bone refinement perfection. Due to the decline of qi and blood, the realm has fallen to the initial realm of bone refinement, qi blood value, 1,350. P.S. This is the family's total qi blood value. The safe and usable amount of qi blood is 135. Exceeding this amount may lead to uncontrollable events. Cultivation technique, mortal's finest, fierce tiger strength, comprehension, 30% plus. P.S. Cultivation techniques are graded from low to high as trivial, mortal, yellow grade, profound grade, earth grade, sky grade. Upon seeing the attribute panel before him, Luo Qingfeng was somewhat dumbfounded. Could this be the golden finger that came with my transmigration? I thought I could live another 10 or 20 days without any problem, but I didn't expect. My lifespan is now down to the last 7 days. Right, what does this qi blood value mean? Family's total qi blood? Safe usable range is 1/10. Does that mean I can use this qi blood to add points? Luo Qingfeng's brows slightly furrowed, his mind swirling with thoughts. As he stretched out his hand, attempting to press the plus sign next to lifespan, another semi-transparent system interface popped up before his eyes. This time, the system interface presented 2 options. One was, yes, and the other was, no. To increase lifespan by 1 day, 10 qi blood points are required. Does the host wish to increase? Yes, no, 10 qi blood points for 1 day's extension means that, within the safe usable range, the most I can increase is 13 days of lifespan. This lifespan increase is a bit meager. Luo Qingfeng directly ignored the prompt that had just popped up. He then extended his right hand and pressed the plus sign next to his cultivation level. If his memories weren't mistaken, once his cultivation reached above bone refinement and into the organ refinement realm, he could extend his life by at least 20 years. And if he reached the blood refinement realm above organ refinement, he could then extend his life by another 30 years. If he were to break through blood cultivation and reach the mortal transcendence realm above, even living to the age of 300 was not a big problem. To upgrade a minor realm, you need to consume 100 points of qi blood value. Would you like to upgrade, host? Yes, no, the familiar semi-transparent window, once again, appeared before Luo Qingfeng's eyes. A minor realm for 100 qi blood points? Does that mean, with the currently safe and available amount of qi blood, I can only upgrade 1 minor realm? At this thought, Luo Qingfeng couldn't help but hesitate. He was pondering whether he should use all the safely available qi blood to extend his lifespan. Or, should he first upgrade 1 minor realm, then extend his lifespan by 3 days? Right, there's something I want to ask. After using the total qi blood value of the clan, will it be replenished? How long will it take to fully recover? Before adding points, Luo Qingfeng had such a question for his golden finger. Regrettably, however, the golden finger did not answer his question. With no other choice, Luo Qingfeng could only adopt a more cautious approach. That was to try it out himself. Then, see how long it would take for the consumed chi blood value to recover. Let's add 3 days to the lifespan first. Luo Qingfeng thought to himself. Afterward, he extended his sinful right hand, capable of deducting the chi blood of his clanspeople. Qingshi Town, Luo family ancestral land. Outside the courtyard of the Luo family patriarch's residence. Luo Qing, the current patriarch of the Luo family, hustled toward his own courtyard after leaving the small courtyard of the family ancestor. Just as he stepped into his own yard and was about to enter his room adorned with many paintings, he suddenly felt dizzy. Fortunately, this condition did not last long before it ended. My son, my son. As Luo Qing stepped into his room, he hastily called out to the youth sitting quietly in an armchair, dressed in a white robe, with a handsome and somewhat delicate face. Father, as the head of the Luo family, what sort of appearance are you presenting in such a hurry? Sit down first, take a breath and have some tea, then we can talk. The youth named Luo Chuan slowly picked up a ceramic teapot next to him and poured a cup of tea, filling it to 7/10, after which he calmly spoke to the Luo family patriarch seated beside him. Huff. Luo Qing let out a long breath. After downing the tea his son had handed him in one gulp, he said in a low voice, My son, I did everything you told me to. I also kicked the problem over to Elder Qingfeng's feet. However, the ancestors seemed a bit unusual today, actually asking me to stay and seeking my opinion on the matter. Then what did you say, father? Asked Luo Chuan, his brows slightly furrowed. I naturally beat around the bush there. How could I dare to speak recklessly about such a critical decision for the clan's fate without understanding the ancestors' intentions? Chapter 3 The Future Path of the Luo Family. One father, how did ancestor of the Luo family look today? Luo Chuan asked after a moment of silence. Ancestor's complexion? Luo Qing pondered for a moment, then answered in a low voice, the ancestor's complexion seemed worse than it did a week ago. Even, beside Patriarch Qingfeng, I could faintly smell a scent of decay and death. Perhaps in less than a month's time, Patriarch Qingfeng might. Is that so? Luo Chuan's already slightly furrowed brows tightened upon hearing this. The expression on his face also became increasingly solemn as time passed. It seems that the situation of the Luo family is more severe than I had imagined. Although outsiders call us one of Qingshi Town's 4 great families, powerful, possessing countless wealth, the various factions within our family have differing views about the future development of the clan. As the family head, father, you must consider the bigger picture. Second Uncle Han Chang, after 10 years of fruitless scholarly endeavors, turned from literature to commerce and now controls 70%, or perhaps even more, of the family's wealth. Third uncle is strong and powerful, the mightiest of our Luo family. He also controls the strongest and most elite house servants in the family. But he is brawny and simple-minded. Carelessly, he could be swindled by outsiders, selling himself yet still counting the money for them. The reason this extensive Luo family has been able to hold on until now, relies on the dignity left by Patriarch Qingfeng in the past. If, at such a critical moment, something unexpected happens to Patriarch Qingfeng, our Luo family will likely begin to fall apart gradually, devoured bit by bit by the other 3 major families of Qingshi Town, as well as the insatiably greedy officials. As Luo Chuan spoke, the atmosphere in the room suddenly became oppressive and uncomfortable. My son, is there really no other way to preserve our clan? There are ways, just that. Just what? Speak directly, I can take it. Luo Qing, looking at his son Luo Chuan, said with a slightly trembling voice. Meanwhile, Luo Chuan in the room slowly picked up a cup of tea beside him. He brought it to his lips and drank it all. Glancing at his father, whose breathing was somewhat irregular, he let out a slight sigh and said, The Da Feng dynasty has experienced years of drought, countless people have turned to banditry, rising up in rebellion. Even though the bedrock of the Da Feng dynasty still exists, the arrival of these chaotic times is now inevitable. In these times of chaos, if our Luo family cannot unite, I think perhaps it would be better to find a deserted mountain and live secluded from the world. This could also be a way to ensure the continuation of our clan's bloodline. But if our Luo family were to do so, I am afraid we would have to give up our family enterprise in Qingshi Town, which we have painstakingly managed for 200 to 300 years. By the time the chaos ends, whether the Da Feng dynasty suppresses the rebellion, or a new ruler emerges, it will be difficult for our Luo family to return to Qingshi Town again. Although Luo Chuan's words were calm, this calmness made the current emotions of Luo Qing, the Luo family patriarch, incredibly heavy. Ensuring the continuity of the family bloodline. Kuener, what do you mean by that? After much contemplation, Luo Qing suddenly grasped an important piece of information and hastily asked his son beside him, Luochuan. Yes, even so, it merely ensures the continuation of the family's bloodline, that's all. Luochuan poured himself another cup of tea and drank it down in a single gulp. He raised his head, his expression somewhat helpless as he looked at his father, the family head, and spoke in a low voice, "Father, you can't seriously believe that if you decide to leave Qingxi town and hide away in some deep mountain, Uncle 2 and Uncle 3's people would obediently follow you, right? Uncle 2 is the most conservative. Asking him to give up the family properties and leave Qingxi town is bound to be an impossibility. Uncle 3 has a strong personality, always thinking of venturing out during the troubled times. Had Elder Qingfeng still been alive, Uncle 3 would have already left this small town of fewer than 100,000 inhabitants long ago with his own people. So, even if you heed my advice and stay out of the chaos, at most it would merely ensure the continuity of the family's bloodline. Is there really no way to have the best of both worlds?" Luo Ping's emotions wavered with hesitation. If possible, he naturally did not want to just leave this place where the Wu family had survived and flourished for a full 200 to 300 years. "Father, you can't have your cake and eat it too. As the Wu family patriarch, you must make a decision when it matters most." Luochuan finished speaking and silently stood up, walking alone out of the room. As Luochuan gradually departed and his figure slowly disappeared from Luo Ping's view, Luo Ping slumped weakly into a wooden recliner. His eyes were somewhat dull as he stared into the distance. To live in hiding or to grit my teeth and stay between these two paths, which should I really choose? While the Wu family patriarch Luo Ping hesitated indecisively, within the Zhao family ancestral land of the four great families of Qingxi town, Zhao Wu, the current Zhao family head, along with a host of elders, were also gathered together. "Dr. Wang, in your opinion, how long can that old fogey from the Wu family ancestral land last?" In the silent yet extremely bright hall, Zhao Wu, seated in the place of honor, suddenly asked the elderly man dressed in purple finery with a face full of wrinkles and a long white beard. Though quite aged, the old man seemed remarkably spirited as he spoke in a low voice. "From what I see, within half a month's time, that old immortal from the Wu family ancestral land will certainly perish due to the exhaustion of his lifespan." Dr. Wang smiled slightly, confidently stroking his smooth white beard as he spoke softly. The old man known as Dr. Wang was named Wang Kun. Prior to this, he was the most skilled and well-known physician in Qingxi town. Because Dr. Wang hadn't aligned himself with any power within Qingxi town, the people from the various forces within the town liked to request his services to treat all kinds of diseases. The ancestor of the Wu family, faced with the imminent exhaustion of his lifespan and distressed by it, once invited Dr. Wang to inquire whether there was any way to prolong life. However, the outcome was clear to see. Not to mention whether such methods existed, even if they did, the price would not be something the modest Luo family could afford. Chapter 4, Improving Cultivation, Restoring Strength 1 within half a month. "Elder Wang, are you sure about this time frame?" Sitting at the main seat, Zhao Wu heard this, his expression gradually becoming serious and solemn. For a matter relating to the future development path of the family clan, he had to get it crystal clear. Otherwise, such a matter could potentially affect the future of the Zhao family. "How could you dare to doubt the medical skills of my master?" After Wang Kun's judgment was questioned, before he himself could stand up, his personal disciple standing behind him couldn't help but speak out. "Shut up." Wang Kun's mouth curled slightly upward, looking somewhat pleased as he glanced at his sagacious personal disciple standing behind him. Only then did he pretend to be angry, somewhat putting on an act as he loudly scolded his personal disciple behind him. "Have you no eyes? Where do you think we are, and who do you think is in here? How can someone of your junior status speak out of turn in a place like this?" Having scolded his personal disciple, Wang Kun's face then showed a trace of apology as he spoke in a quiet voice to Zhao Wu, the family head sitting in the main seat in front of him. "Family head Zhao, my junior was thoughtless and has offended you. I am truly sorry." "It's fine." Zhao Wu clenched his teeth tightly, suppressing the anger in his heart. Since family head Zhao has already received the desired answer, if there's nothing else, then I shall take my leave now. In a room filled with the Zhao family's senior members, Wang Kun slightly bowed his head, speaking calmly in a low voice. "All right, you may leave." Sitting at the main seat, Zhao Wu waved his hand with an expressionless face. Thus, under everyone's gaze, Wang Kun, with his personal disciple, slowly left the room where the atmosphere seemed somewhat amiss. "Family head, why did you let that arrogant Wang Kun?" In the council hall, among the Zhao family elders, a middle-aged elder couldn't hold back his emotions and stood up to speak. "No harm." Zhao Wu shook his head slightly. He fell silent for a moment, then continued, "Just a week ago, that Wang Kun successfully passed the Wandan Sect's entrance examination and became one of its registered disciples. Moreover, the fellow has mastered the method to refine body tempering pills. Now, the relationship between our Zhao family and that Wang Kun is one of mutual use. We, the Zhao family, provide him with food, lodging, and various precious spiritual medicines. In turn, Wang Kun provides our Zhao family with the body-tempering pills he refines. So, as long as Wang Kun doesn't obstruct the development and growth of our Zhao family, other matters. Let him be. With Zhao Wu's words, all the elders of the Zhao family reluctantly lowered their heads. The council hall thus returned once more to boundless silence. Wandan sect, a colossus indeed. Not to mention within the small Diefeng dynasty, even across the entire Donghuang divine state, and the whole Xuan Yuan continent, Wandan sect had a highly revered status. Therefore, even though Wang Kun had only just passed Wandan sect's entrance examination, and was merely one among countless registered disciples, he was not an entity that the current Zhao family could afford to provoke lightly. As time trickled by, soon, a new day quietly dawned. In Qingxi town, at the Wu family ancestral land, Luo Qingfeng, as the sole grand ancestor of the Wu family, was now silently spending time in his courtyard, his body slightly weak as he half reclined in an ancient Taishi chair that had existed for who knows how many years. His turbid eyes were struggling to stay open, while the semi-transparent attribute panel hung brightly in midair. Name, Luo Qingfeng, lifespan, 9 days plus, cultivation level, initial realm of bone refinement plus, chi blood, 1350. PS, safe and controllable level of chi blood, 135, cultivation technique, mortal's finest, fierce tiger force, comprehension, 30% plus, looking at the golden finger that belonged only to himself. Luo Qingfeng's previously murky eyes suddenly cleared a bit. A day's time, and the chi blood I have expended has already recovered? So, does this mean I can recover 30 points or more in a day? At this thought, Luo Qingfeng seemed to realize something, and quickly shook his head again. No, this kind of calculation seemed somewhat inaccurate. The time I expended chi blood to increase my lifespan yesterday was sometime afternoon. And now, it's only the early morning of the second day. Even the sky has not yet fully brightened. So this means the consumption of 30 points of chi blood can be fully recovered in less than half a day. If that's really the case, then I can focus on enhancing my own cultivation level first. Living with this body of an old man that's so drained of chi blood that I am at death's door is indeed quite difficult. As Luo Qingfeng thought, he couldn't help but complain in his mind. To raise a minor realm, 100 chi blood points will be expended. Does the host wish to proceed? Yes, no. As Luo Qingfeng made a decision and stretched out his sinister right hand that could deduct the chi blood of his clansmen, the window that had popped up yesterday appeared before his eyes once again today. Yes. Luo Qingfeng reached out his right hand and tapped the yes button once again. Host's choice detected, deducting 100 chi blood points. Host's cultivation level is advancing, the cold voice echoed in Luo Qingfeng's mind. Immediately after, a somewhat scorching flow of blood started coursing through his body. As the blood completed an entire circuit within his veins, his chi blood that had been drained to the brink started to recover. His somewhat weak body gradually regained some strength. His body, which faintly emitted the stench of decay, at this moment, gradually radiated a hint of vitality. About 3 minutes later, this state slowly dissipated. So this is the power of the intermediate stage of bone refinement? Luo Qingfeng stood up excitedly. He then pinched his own hands that were still utterly gaunt and rough as tree bark. Although the current strength has not returned to its peak state, Luo Qingfeng found some solace. The exhaustion, weakness, and helplessness that had constantly troubled him had seemingly disappeared by a large margin at this moment. Although from time to time he still felt a bit fatigued and weak, but at least he could, by his own strength, walk a little and move around. Even spar with someone for a short period. This should not be a big problem anymore. Chapter 5 This is chaos. Maybe I should take a walk? Luo Qingfeng thought to himself. After that, he placed his hands behind his back. Step by step, he walked leisurely toward the outside of the courtyard. As the remaining elder ancestor of the Wu family, his courtyard was also situated at the very center of the Wu family ancestral land. Patriarch Qingfeng. Patriarch Qingfeng. Along the way, members of the Wu family clan, upon seeing Luo Qingfeng, greeted him with great respect. Luo Qingfeng responded with a smile on his face. He expressed his friendliness and good intentions toward his clan members. After all, if he wanted to advance his cultivation and understanding of the cultivation technique in the future, he would need these clan members to provide him with a sufficient amount of chi blood value. Isn't that Elder Qingfeng? Just as Luo Qingfeng stepped out of the Wu family's main gate and walked onto the fairly bustling street, at the main entrance of the Wu family ancestral land, the man in a green robe, who was leisurely strolling in the clan's area, the current patriarch of the Wu family, Luo King, suddenly stretched out his hand to rub his eyes. He was a bit astonished. At seeing Elder Qingfen, Luoping even felt as if there was something wrong with his eyes. Just yesterday, their Elder Qingfen seemed to be on his last breath, as if he was about to expire. But today, he appeared to have a healthy red glow about his face, brimming with vigor. He was even able to stand up and walk around. Isn't that strange? Could it be the so-called returning light? His thoughts reached this point, and Luoping's expression suddenly turned ugly. The mood that had been quite good initially also gradually became uncomfortable. I must talk to Kuiner about this right away. And I also need to make a decision about the two options Kuiner discussed with me sooner rather than later. Soon, Luoping disappeared from the main entrance of the Wo family ancestral land. And then there was Luo Qingfen, who had stepped out onto the bustling streets. At that moment, he continued to walk slowly forward with his hands clasped behind his back. Candied haws for sale, candied haws. Buns, fragrant and sweet buns. Animal masks, who wants a fun animal mask? As he walked, vendors on both sides of the street shouted, smiling, continuously calling out their wares. Initially, Luo Qingfen was in quite a good mood. The lively streets, the hurrying passers-by, the rich ordinary life atmosphere. All of it made him feel very novel. Although he had often seen such scenes in his previous life, that was merely on TV, mobile phones, or computers. But now, suddenly finding himself in the midst of it, to personally experience and witness such scenes, well, it really was somewhat different. However, it was a pity that Luo Qingfen's good mood did not last very long. As time passed and as he walked farther and farther, the situation on the street seemed to undergo a complete 360-degree turnaround. The earlier bustling scenes completely vanished. The vendors shouting on either side of the street disappeared. There were still hurrying passers-by, but Luo Qingfen could not see any smile on their faces. What he could see was only deep concern and numbness. Even the houses on both sides of the street seemed dilapidated and in disrepair. No, don't take me. Dad, save me, Dad. Suddenly, the tender cries of a little girl sounded from not far ahead. Here's 3 taels of silver, the money for your daughter's life. Hold on to it well, don't lose it and then come looking for us. A man with a physique strong like a tiger or wolf and a face full of fierceness, was handing over 3 taels of silver fragments to a man dressed in worn-out clothes, with a sallow and emaciated face, wearing an expression of numbness. Thank you, thank you. With these 3 taels of silver, I will be able to break even. I can break even, I am sure I will break even. Yinger, wait for me, once I break even, I will surely redeem you. I will get you delicious food, spicy drinks, and a big house to live in. The man looked somewhat unwillingly at his daughter who kept begging him for help. He clenched his teeth tightly, his eyes reddening, as he held back and turned his head away. Heading straight into a gambling house not far away. Hey, little girl, let's go. I will take you to a place. I promise you will enjoy delicious food, spicy drinks, and a carefree life. The strong man said while laughing wildly and unrestrainedly. As he laughed, the several lackeys behind him joined in the laughter. And the young girl, tightly bound with rope, could not help but let a tear of despair fall from the corner of her eye. A good place where one could eat well, drink spicy beverages, and live a carefree life. Even if those men did not say it, the girl knew very well what kind of place it really was. As time passed, those few people and the girl also disappeared from Luo Qingfen's line of sight. Is this what chaos looks like? Luo Qingfen looked around at the chaotic and filthy streets and the hurried, numb-faced citizens. Then, he looked at those lying at their doorstep, with arms outstretched, motionless, as if waiting for death to arrive. He couldn't help but sigh softly, shaking his head. Forget it, let's not go any further, better head back. Upon seeing these scenes, Luo Qingfen no longer felt any leisure to walk around. Now, he only wanted to return home quickly, and then, as fast as possible, improve his cultivation. While the Daifeng dynasty's deterrent power still exists, the world can already become so chaotic. If at some point, the Daifeng dynasty no longer had the strength to suppress the rebellions throughout the land, truly reaching the stage where warlords rise together, competing for the empire, the world would probably become even more chaotic. So, if Luo Qingfen wished to survive in this era of chaos, or say, he wanted to protect the Wo family, the source of his strength, a power formidable enough to intimidate outsiders was absolutely necessary. Just as Luo Qingfen turned around to walk towards the location of the Wo family, about a dozen men dressed in common clothes wielding rusty blades, suddenly appeared beside him, and surrounded him completely. Old man, you seem pretty wealthy. In these chaotic times, and yet you can afford to look rosy and full of vigor. Must have quite a fortune at home, don't you think? What do you say? Should we escort you there, or will you walk with us willingly? Among the group of desperados, there was one wearing black clothes, with a black scarf on his head. Although he was rather lean, He was wielding a brand new steel knife. He looked like a leader, smiling as he sized up Luo Qingfeng in front of him. That gaze, as if appraising his own prey, made Luo Qingfeng, the sole elder of the Luo family, feel somewhat uncomfortable. Chapter 6 Blackwind Stockade, 9th Steward 1. In front of him were more than a dozen desperados with rusty blades in their hands. The vast majority were merely ordinary people with a bit of courage and some strength. Even from the nervous looks in the eyes of these desperados, Luo Qingfeng could easily tell that these men must have only joined recently. The only exception was the man dressed in black, with a black cloth covering his head, carrying a brand new steel knife, his face filled with ferocity. Though his figure appeared somewhat lean, the aura of bloodshed radiated from him unmistakably indicated a leader. He was one who had already stepped into the realm of cultivation. However, his strength seemed limited to the initial realm of skin refinement. Such an existence, even in the dozens let alone 10, 60, or even 100 Luo Qingfeng would have been able to cut through them all and then leave safely. Old man, what are you thinking about? Didn't you hear what I said? On a chaotic and impoverished street of Qingxi town, quite a distance from the Luo family ancestral land, the leader of the dozen or so desperados saw that Luo Qingfeng was simply standing silently, not responding to his question, and he started to get angry. This would have been tolerable in a time of peace, but now, it was a time of chaos. In such tumultuous times, human life is worth less than that of grass. Had it not been for the fact that he thought this old man must have quite a lot of money at home, he would have already struck, ending the old man's life with a single blade. Brothers, take action. If we don't teach this old fellow a lesson, he really won't take us seriously. The desperado leader dressed in black waved his brand new steel knife, commanding the desperados beside him. The dozen or so desperados exchanged glances with one another, and then, holding their rusty blades, they charged towards Luo Qingfeng. Humphrey, do these people really take me for just some ordinary old man? Luo Qingfeng looked at the desperados before him, his expression gradually becoming colder. However, regarding these desperados rushing towards him, Luo Qingfeng had no intention of taking action himself. Upon leaving the Luo family clan land, he had subtly felt that quite a few practitioners in the skin refinement realm were following him. With the appearance of these desperados, the presence of those skin refinement practitioners became even more noticeable. After these desperados began their charge, those practitioners in the realm of skin refinement even began to emerge from various corners around them, closing in on his position. Centered around Luo Qingfeng, they formed an impenetrable protective circle. The youngsters from the Luo family are thoughtful. In the end, Luo Qingfeng gave one last look to the desperados. He silently turned around. As the sound of clashing weapons gradually rose, and as the scent of blood pervaded and spread through the air, the battle also came to an end. Patriarch Qingfeng, those bandits of no significant strength have all been slain. The bandit in the initial realm of skin refinement has been captured alive. What should we do with this man? A house servant commander, clad in gray, likely at the refining stage of perfection in the realm of skin refinement, was at that moment slightly bowing his head, his hands clasped together. He asked Luo Qingfeng respectfully. Do you know where that group came from? Luo Qingfeng stood with his hands clasped behind his back, quietly looking forward. It seems that this group of mountain bandits came from Blackwind Stockade, located in a small mountain outside Qingxi town. Blackwind Stockade? Luo Qingfeng's eyes narrowed slightly. Afterward, some information about Blackwind Stockade emerged in his mind. Blackwind Stockade had probably been established about half a year ago. Their main base appeared to be in a deserted small mountain outside Qingxi town. The leader of Blackwind Stockade was at the refining stage of skin refinement. There were about 500 people in Blackwind Stockade. In terms of combined strength, they ranked 10th among the 10 major bandit factions like mountain brigands and horse thieves outside Qingxi town. Just kill them. As for Blackwind Stockade, Luo Qingfeng thought for a moment, then after a brief silence, he spoke in a low voice to the house servant commander beside him. Go and see if you can find the main base of Blackwind Stockade. If you can find it, take care of it while you are at it. If it cannot be found, then let it be for the time being. When there's time later and I am free, then deal with that stockade. Yes. The house servant commander nodded vigorously. He then turned around, his expression somewhat cold as he walked towards the mountain bandit at the initial realm of skin refinement. You can't kill me. Do you know who I am? I am the 9th leader of Blackwind Stockade. If you kill me, my big brother. The 9th leader of the bandits saw the house servant approaching him. He then began to struggle frantically. He even shouted out his identity loudly. It seemed he was trying to exchange this information for his life. It's just a pity. Even if this bandit were only a minor 9th leader within Blackwind Stockade. Even if this guy were the boss of Blackwind Stockade. In the presence of the Luo family, one of the 4 great families of Qingxi town, he still had to die. Bang, The dull sound of a round head falling to the ground suddenly erupted. At the gaping wound on the neck of the bandit's ninth leader, the bright red blood kept spurting out. Do you know who the old man you tried to attack just now was? The house servant commander slowly sheathed his brand new steel knife. With a somewhat calm demeanor, he looked at the head still rolling on the ground and said in a low voice, that was the ancestor of the Wo family, one of the 4 great families of Qingxi Town. Not to mention that you are just a minor 9th leader of Blackwind Stockade. Even if you were the leader of Blackwind Stockade, in front of that elderly man, you still cannot escape death. After dealing with this matter, the house servants began to swiftly clean up the scene. Not until they had taken all the bodies away and thrown them to the side of the street, did the group of house servants from the Wo family clan gradually vanish from Luo Qingfeng's line of sight, hiding in various corners around. It's also time to go back. Luo Qingfeng glanced at the spot where the house servant commander he had just been talking to was hiding. He quickly withdrew his gaze, and silently walked towards the direction of the Wo family ancestral land. Sir, lend me some money, please lend me a little money. As long as you agree to lend it to me, once I win back what I have lost, I will repay you double, triple, or even 5 times the amount. At the side of the street, just as Luo Qingfeng had taken a few steps, a middle-aged man clothed in tattered garments, with a sallow face and emaciated figure chased out by the casino goons, quickly crawled towards him, desperately clutching Luo Qingfeng's trouser leg with his somewhat grimy hands. This guy. Is he the one who just sold his daughter? Luo Qingfeng glanced at the middle-aged man beside his feet, with red eyes and a face full of haggardness. He then looked at the casino that was seemingly bustling among the poor people. Luo Qingfeng sighed with some helplessness and said softly, this casino, it really does bring people to ruin. Chapter 7, A Glimmer of Light at the End? One after kicking the middle-aged man by his feet viciously away, Luo Qingfeng promptly headed toward the direction of the Wo family ancestral land. As he returned to the Wo family ancestral land, and entered through the main gate, Luo King, the current family head of the Wo family, was standing at the entrance, looking around somewhat nervously and in silence. Patriarch Qingfeng. Upon seeing Luo Qingfeng's figure appear and seeing that Luo Qingfeng was still unharmed, he slightly lowered his head and greeted him. Then, he slowly exhaled a breath. The heavy stone that had been weighing on his heart suddenly fell at that moment. All is well, as long as Elder Qingfeng is safe. Luo Qingfeng glanced at Luo Ping beside him, who appeared somewhat odd. He nodded in acknowledgement. Afterward, he did not pay any more attention to the man. He silently made his way to his own courtyard. Although the bone refinement intermediate stage realm was sufficient for him to restore some vital energy and his former strength, this realm was ultimately still too low. In Qingxi Town, if he wanted to ensure peace and even the safety of his Luo family, he must at least recover his cultivation to its peak as it had been before. Or even surpass the peak. And advance his cultivation to the organ refinement realm, which was above bone refinement. Only then could Luo Qingfeng sit high and watch the many changes in Qingxi Town with composure. A short while later, Luo Qingfeng returned to his own courtyard. As soon as he entered his yard, he promptly found an open area and sat down with crossed legs. He worked hard to regulate his breathing rhythm and the flow of vital energy within his body. Meanwhile, at the main entrance of the Wo family clan's land, Luo King, having seen that Patriarch Qingfeng seemed to have no serious issues, rushed anxiously to his own courtyard. My son, my son. As soon as he returned to his small courtyard, Luo King, the current family head of the Wo family, couldn't help calling out loudly and repeatedly. Father, you really are. In the courtyard, the delicate-looking young man dressed in white, sitting quietly beneath a stone pavilion, couldn't help curling his lips upon hearing the urgent calls. Raising his head, he looked in the direction of his father, and spoke with a somewhat hopeless expression. This really does not become the bearing of a family head of the Wo family. If outsiders see this, who knows what they might think of you. Hey, isn't it just within this courtyard that I act like this, huh? Luo Ping laughed somewhat awkwardly, and then quickly added, besides, even if outsiders saw it, who would dare to make idle comments? Forget it, let's not talk about this. You would better tell me why you have hastily run back here, said the son. Patriarch Qingfeng has returned, but while roaming around Qingxi Town, he encountered a gang of bandits. Bandits? Luo Chuan, who was holding a porcelain teacup in his right hand, couldn't help but tremble slightly upon hearing his father Luo Ping's words. A chill flickered in his eyes, which should have remained undisturbed. Even though Elder Qingfeng's strength was no longer at its peak, his vital energy had dried up to its limit. His lifespan was nearly exhausted, and it would not be an exaggeration to say that half his body was in the grave. Even fighting a few robust men was somewhat struggle, let alone confronting those blade-wielding bandits. But even so, Patriarch Qingfeng remained an incredibly important figure for the Wo family, one of the 4 great families of Qingxi Town. Father, Do we know which gang of bandits it was? After a long silence, and after Luo Chuan finished the cup of tea in his hand, his voice was slightly icy as he asked his own father. House servants say that the bandits seem to come from a small mountain outside Qingxi town, from a mountain stronghold called Blackwen Stockade. Blackwen Stockade? Luo Chuan murmured to himself as he nodded silently. After pondering for a moment more, he quietly inquired of his father beside him, "Father, how is Elder Qingfeng's condition?" "His complexion is rosy, and his spirit is vigorous. It's just like a fleeting recovery before death. It's just uncertain how long Elder Qingfeng can maintain this condition." Over at the Luo family's side, they had learned all about Luo Qingfeng's outing. Being also one of the 4 great families of Qingxi town. And the sworn enemy of the Luo family, the Zhao family. At this time, they too had received such good news. "Kaianer, are you sure about this news?" In a room with a slightly cool temperature on the Zhao family ancestral land, Zhao Qian, the current young master of the Zhao family, the son of the family head, stood there quite excitedly, his face brimming with a smile. "Father, it's absolutely true. I saw it with my own eyes. That old thing from the Luo family ancestral land suddenly left the estate today and walked around Qingxi town. And that old thing encountered a group of mountain bandits while he was out. However, it's a pity that the old thing was accompanied by quite a few Luo family house servants as guards. The old thing from the Luo family should have returned to the Luo family ancestral land by now." "Bandits?" On hearing this, Zhao Wu, the current family head of the Zhao family, couldn't help but heave a sigh. Indeed, it was a pity. Given the current contradictions between the 3 brothers of the Luo family. If that old thing from the Luo family ancestral land were to suddenly die, the collapse of the Luo family would happen in the blink of an eye. However, since Zhao Wu knew about the importance of that old thing from the Luo family ancestral land, the Luo family clan should naturally be aware of it as well. It made sense that when the old thing went out, he was protected by elite house servants. As for what his own son, Zhao Qian, claimed to have seen with his own eyes, Zhao Wu didn't quite believe it. This news probably came from the servants whom the Zhao family had assigned to keep an eye on the Luo family. It's just that the news was intercepted midway by his own son. "Since you say that you witnessed this event with your own eyes, did you happen to see how that old thing from the Luo family looked, what his complexion was like?" This. Zhao Qian, hearing his father's question, suddenly became flustered. The servants of Zhao family had indeed informed him about the course of events. He also knew some details. But regarding the question of the old thing from the Luo family ancestral land, his complexion, and state of mind, that was something he really had no information about. "This matter isn't actually what you witnessed personally, is it?" In the room, Zhao Wu, who sat at the place of honor, noticed his son was somewhat faltering, and his gaze kept drifting toward a servant of the Zhao family in the back. Zhao Wu instantly understood everything. "Why don't you tell us, how did that old thing from the Luo family ancestral land look today? What was his mental state like?" Zhao Wu shifted his gaze away from his son, looking instead toward a servant standing behind Zhao Qian. Chapter 8 Zhao Wu, the Zhao family will rise again. One in the room, the servant saw the family head Zhao Wu shift his gaze toward him. He could only stand up helplessly. And gave an answer. "Family head, the old ancestor of the Luo family ancestral land seems to be in excellent spirits, and his condition is exceptionally good." "In excellent spirits? Exceptionally good condition?" Zhao Wu heard this and couldn't help but fall into deep thought. According to Wang Kun's judgment, that old thing in the Luo family ancestral land should not have more than half a month to live. The current state should be that he is already halfway buried in the earth. Under such circumstances, it would be impossible to even think of going for a walk. Even just moving the body slightly should be quite a difficult task. But now, the current situation of that old thing is so unreasonable. It seems that the old thing must have eaten some sort of life-extending spirit pill. Or it could be a case of a resurgence of vitality before death. Between these two possibilities, Zhao Wu was more inclined to believe the latter. It seems that the old thing's time is nearly up. The conflicts within the Luo family ancestral land will erupt completely with the death of that old man. If that time really comes, the collapse and disintegration of the Luo family will not be far off. And our Zhao family in Qingxi town will rise again at that time. With these thoughts in mind, Zhao Wu waved his hand. He dismissed all the Zhao family servants in the room. "Do you have a clear understanding of the locations and various information of the varying quality kingstone veins held by the Luo family?" "I understand, father. I am naturally clear on such matters." Zhao Qian nodded slightly, his answer carrying a trace of unease. Zhao Wu seemed to notice the uneasiness of his unreliable son. He turned his head slightly and glanced at him. Then, he spoke slowly. "Qingxi town nearby is known for producing cheap, sturdy, and durable kingstone. About 300 years ago, there were only 3 major families in Qingxi town. These three families were the He family, the Jing family, and our Zhao family that we are part of. The He family managed all the marketplaces within Qingxi town, controlled most of the trade, and had the strongest business capabilities. The Jing family controlled all the gambling dens in Qingxi town and had a large number of thugs under their command, possessing the greatest combat power. And our Zhao family controlled all the Kingstone mines near Qingxi town. The mining and sale of Kingstone nearby were all handled solely by our Zhao family. The strength of our Zhao family's clan was not much less than those two families. However, ever since that outsider Luo family established themselves here in Qingxi town, many things have changed. Who knows what methods the ancestor of the Luo family used more than 300 years ago. In an extremely short period of time, he discovered a large amount of Kingstone mines that had never been found and mined before. As the number of Kingstone mines held by the Luo family gradually matched and then surpassed our Zhao families, the situation changed dramatically in an instant. The mining and sale of Kingstone were no longer under the sole control of our Zhao family. Even the pricing of Kingstone was no longer something our Zhao family could set as we pleased. That outsider, the ancestor of the Luo family at that time, not only firmly bit off a large chunk from our Zhao family, but even managed to firmly establish themselves in Qingxi town because of it. Our Zhao family ancestors did not lack the desire to resist back then, but the strength of the Luo family's ancestor at the time was a bit too formidable. Thus, the matter was left unsettled. As he spoke, Zhao Wu silently stood up and began to walk step by step towards his son, Zhao Qian. Father, why have you never mentioned this to me before? Seeing his father approaching, Zhao Qian instinctively took a step back. What's the use of telling you something that happened more than 300 years ago? Then, Dad, why are you bringing it up to me now? Zhao Qian swallowed his saliva and took another step back. He maintained a certain distance from his father, who was always so imposing. Only then did he have the courage to lift his head and sneak a peek at his father's face, the family head. As expected, it was just as he had predicted. At this moment, it seemed that his father's expression wasn't too pleasant. Fool. Zhao Wu looked at his son, Zhao Qian, who was cowering in front of him and was so foolishly inept. He could not suppress his anger. I don't care whether you know about the Qingxi or vain information that the Luo family holds, or not. But I want you to memorize it all during this time. When the old man in the Luo family ancestral land is dead and the Luo family is too conflicted to unite, that will be the perfect opportunity for our Zhao family to annihilate the Luo family. And I want you to take people and seize all those Qingxi or veins the Luo family holds in the shortest time possible. Having said that, Zhao Wu quickly walked toward the door and slowly closed his eyes. He tried to calm his fluctuating mood. Dad, even if the Luo family cannot unite, their overall strength is still strong. Can our Zhao family really wipe out the Luo family in one fell swoop? Inside the room, Zhao Qian swallowed his saliva, his voice trembling slightly as he asked such a question. You don't need to worry about that issue. You just need to take care of the tasks I have given you. After this conversation was over, Zhao Wu quickly left the room. As the current family head of Zhao family and a man known for his brilliance and wisdom, how did he end up with such a foolish son? He was even afraid that if he continued to stay there, he really would be infuriated to illness by his own son. As for the issue of the Luo family's strong overall strength, Zhao Wu wasn't unaware of it. In fact, he knew far more about the Luo family than his son did. However, a united Luo family was difficult to deal with. But a Luo family racked with conflicts and unable to unite, wouldn't they be easy to handle? Not to mention, just the fact that the majority of the Luo family's elite servants were under the control of the third son of the Luo family, the person with the greatest combat power. The strong but simple-minded man, always thinking about going out to experience the world, was he not easy to deal with? To defeat the Luo family, that third son was definitely a major breakthrough point. Inside the room, Zhao Qian, the young master of the Zhao family, watched as his father, the family head, disappeared from his sight. Only then did he slowly exhale a breath. He seemed to relax quite a bit. It had to be said, by the side of his father, the family head, Zhao Qian could always feel an overwhelming pressure washing over him like a tide, incessantly flowing towards him. It even made breathing difficult for him. Can't we live in peace? The situation of the four great families coexisting has already lasted for more than 300 years. Is the Luo family really that easy to handle? Although Zhao Qian didn't say it out loud, he still had some worries in his heart. Besides, there was another problem. The various information about the Qingxi or veins held by the Luo family. Memorizing all of that was no simple task. Chapter 9 Black-Furred Tiger Zhuangqi, Master 1 In the blink of an eye, another day had passed. Qingxi town, located nearby, was known for its production of cheap and sturdy bluestones. Consequently, the number of mountains in the vicinity was particularly high. And with the increase in mountains, the number of mountain bandits claiming dominance over them naturally grew over time. Blackwind Stockade was one such place that had risen to prominence in recent years, amidst the Da Feng dynasty's severe droughts and a rampant exploitation by corrupt officials. Although Blackwind Stockade was still a small stronghold, the total number of its inhabitants had just surpassed 500. Yet, Blackwind Stockade paid considerable attention to the source of various pieces of information, especially news from Qingxi Town, which was the closest to the stockade. Blackwind Stockade paid the utmost attention to it. In the early morning, when the sky was a dull gray and the thick fog in the mountains had not yet fully cleared, on a small hilltop occupied by Blackwind Stockade near Qingxi Town, within a stronghold that was not particularly large, a low-ranking thug, dressed in cloth and carrying a rusty steel knife with several notches, was hurrying towards the hall where matters were discussed within the stockade. "Boss, it's bad, something terrible has happened," the thug with the rusty steel knife shouted as he ran. "What's all the rush? What do you look like?" In the Blackwind Stockade's meeting hall, on a giant and imposing chair made of bluestone, Zhuangqi, the founder of Blackwind Stockade and its current leader known as Black-Haired Tiger, was leaning on the chair in utter boredom. He held a jug of wine in his left hand and a greasy pork trotter in his right, eating and drinking, watching the somewhat flustered thug approaching. "Boss, just yesterday, our Blackwind Stockade's ninth leader." "Ninth leader? What happened to old Nine?" Black-haired Tiger Zhuangqi saw the thug struggling to complete his sentences and immediately showed a trace of displeasure on his face. "Yesterday, the ninth leader was killed in Qingxi Town." The thug swallowed his saliva, looking somewhat nervous as he spoke. "What did you say?" Black-haired Tiger Zhuangqi's eyes, large as copper bells, instantly widened, and he exhaled two long streams of white mist from his nostrils. In an instant, his bored expression changed to one of anger. Since half a year ago, when Blackwind Stockade was established, things had been going smoothly. No one had dared to provoke Blackwind Stockade, which Zhuangqi had started single-handedly. Those who dared to provoke Blackwind Stockade now had grass over 3 meters tall on their graves. What Zhuangqi had not anticipated was, just when he was planning to expand his ambition and steer Blackwind Stockade onto a path of the greater strength, the ninth leader of Blackwind Stockade, who was in the initial realm of skin refinement and recruited not long ago, had died just like that. Although the ninth leader of Blackwind Stockade was only a martial artist in the initial realm of skin refinement, even sturdy men with a bit of strength were not easy to recruit in these chaotic times, let alone those who had entered the world of cultivation and possessed certain power. "Damn it, they dare to touch my Blackwind Stockade. Are they tired of living?" Inside the meeting hall, Black-haired Tiger Zhuangqi cursed while grabbing the steel knife beside him, a weapon that had seen countless battles and beheaded numerous foes. Step by step, he advanced towards the thug. With a fierce look, he asked the thug in a low voice, "Who did it?" "Luo, the Luo family." The minion, overwhelmed by the oppressive aura emanating from his boss, replied in a trembling, low voice. "The Luo family, right?" Zhuangqi silently nodded his head, raised the 10 refined steel knife in his hand, and thought of heading out. He seemed to want to gather all of Blackwind Stockade's people to cleanse the shame of the Blackwind Stockade's ninth master's murder by blood-washing the Luo family. Right. Just as Zhuangqi was halfway out, he seemed to have remembered something and retraced his steps. "The Luo family you just mentioned, which Luo family is it?" "Qingxi Town, the Luo family." The minion answered with his head slightly bowed. "I know it's the Luo family of Qingxi Town, but there are more than one family with the surname Luo in Qingxi Town, so which one exactly are you referring to?" "Qingxi Town, one of the 4 great families, the Luo family." As the conversation came to an end, the entire hall fell into a silence as deadly as death itself. "The Luo family of Qingxi Town, one of the 4 greatest families?" Zhuangqi looked at the minion in front of him, repeating incredulously. "Yes, yes." The minion nodded his head repeatedly. And with the murderer of the Blackwind Stockade's ninth master finally confirmed, Zhuangqi, the current chief of the Blackwind Stockade, known as the Black-haired Tiger, now seemed to calm down even more. He silently returned to the main seat of the council hall and sat down quietly. His brow was furrowed, his mind busily contemplating one thing. "Boss, are we still going to take revenge for this?" Inside the council hall, seeing his boss suddenly fall silent, the minion mustered up his courage and asked timidly. "Revenge? What revenge?" Zhuangqi's train of thought was interrupted, and he stared intently at the minion before him as he asked. "The revenge for our ninth master." "Ninth master? What the ninth master?" "Our Blackwind Stockade has never had this so-called ninth master, remember that." "Ah." The minion seemed utterly astonished. "You may leave, I am somewhat tired." Zhuangqi waved his hand and rubbed his head, which was starting to ache. And with the minion thief exiting the council hall, A scholar who had been hiding in a corner of the hall, rather handsome in appearance, now quietly stepped out. Master, a grave problem has arisen. I had intended to wait until Blackwind Stockade grew strong enough before moving against Kingshi Town. But who could have imagined? That damned old nine went to Kingshi Town behind my back. Damned fool, going to Kingshi Town would have been fine, but of all people, he had to provoke the Luo family, one of the 4 strongest families in Kingshi Town. The Luo family now is not in existence. Our humble Blackwind Stockade can afford to provoke. Master, what should I do next? His brows locked tightly, Zhuangqi asked the scholar before him in a somewhat helpless tone. If he wasn't guessing wrong, the Luo family may very likely have already set their sights on his Blackwind Stockade. Fortunately, Blackwind Stockade's main encampment was located in a rather hidden place. It shouldn't be so easy for the Luo family to find his Blackwind Stockade. But just in case, by some carelessness, if his Blackwind Stockade were to be discovered by the Luo family, wouldn't he and his troop be doomed? Despite how mighty Blackwind Stockade seemed before countless refugees and commoners these days, if really compared to those families that had existed for 200 to 300 years, Blackwind Stockade, established for merely half a year, naturally couldn't compare to those deeply rooted noble clans. Chapter 10 The Development Plan of Blackwind Stockade, Another Increase in Strength 1 There's no need for anxiety, Chieftain. Inside the council hall of Blackwind Stockade, a scholar clad in Confucian robes and holding a white feather fan approached the hulking black fur tiger Zhuangqi with a smile and said in a low voice, the Luo family, one of the 4 major families in Kingshi Town, may be strong, but they are already struggling to protect themselves. As long as we in Blackwind Stockade keep a low profile during this time, that should suffice. The Luo family struggling to protect themselves? Zhuangqi's brow furrowed slightly as he heard these words. He did not quite understand what the scholar before him meant. The Confucian-robed scholar holding the white feather fan, who looked just like a learned man, seemed to notice Zhuangqi's confusion. So, he said out loud to explain, does the chieftain know of Elder Qingfen of the Luo family ancestral land? The Luo family's patriarch Qingfen? Zhuangqi pondered for a moment, then nodded and said, of course I know of the Luo family's patriarch Qingfen. But what does this have to do with the Luo family's downfall? Don't be in a hurry, chieftain, and hear me out in detail. Inside the council hall, as the scholar in Confucian robes holding the white feather fan delved deeper into his explanation, Black Fur Tiger Zhuangqi slowly came to understand why his scholar had suddenly said that the Luo family, one of the 4 great families of Kingshi Town, could no longer protect themselves. If what you say is true, then the patriarch of the Luo family is nearing his end, his life soon to be over. The collapse of the Luo family will occur in the blink of an eye. Then, could our Blackwind Stockade also follow behind the Zhao family of Kingshi Town and get a piece of the action? As he said this, a trace of greed gradually spread across Zhuangqi's face. Even if the majority of the Luo family's assets were devoured by the Zhao family, as long as they in Blackwind Stockade could swallow even the scraps the Zhao family had no time to grab, it would already be a tremendous opportunity for growth. We had better not meddle with the Luo family. Why not? Zhuangqi became somewhat anxious. He knew that the Grand Luo family with over 300 years of history was about to fall, but he couldn't bite off a piece of flesh for himself. This made Zhuangqi feel extremely uncomfortable. Chieftain, at present, Blackwind Stockade is weak and among the many stockades in the vicinity of Kingshi Town, we rank at best 10th. Right now, our most important task in Blackwind Stockade is not to focus on the soon-to-collapse Luo family. Our prime objective should be to gather the nearby refugees and absorb the smaller bandit forces in the area. Only by doing so can Blackwind Stockade seize the slim chance to rise amid this chaos. Otherwise, even if we truly bite off a piece from the Luo family, do you really think, chieftain, that we can hold on to the wealth plundered from them? The scholar in the Confucian robes holding the white feather fan spoke as if he was delivering a shocking blow. His words snapped Zhuangqi completely back to reality. What the scholar says does make sense. In that case, let's proceed as you suggest. Gather the nearby refugees and absorb the small bandits. Strengthen Blackwind Stockade's power as much as possible. As time passed, the sky gradually grew brighter. On the streets of Kingshi Town, the number of pedestrians, merchants, and incoming refugees gradually increased. And the Luo family, one of the 4 strongest families in Kingshi Town, at this time, had also started to operate quickly like a precise machine. Huff. Inhale. Huff. Inhale. Luo family ancestral land, at the very heart of it. Within the courtyard of Elder Qingfen. Luo Qingfen, the sole elder of the Luo family, was continuously adjusting his stance, swinging his arms. Even with each breath he took, his movements gradually became faster. Faster, and faster, his movements sped up more and more. Not until he had completed an entire set of the fierce tiger strength cultivation technique, did he finally slow down his motions, regulating the slightly altered frequency of his breathing. A whole day of strenuous cultivation had yielded no improvement. This caused Luo Qingfeng to feel a trace of disappointment. Now that a whole day has passed, let's see how much of the 100 points of Qi blood I have recovered from yesterday. Name, Luo Qingfeng, lifespan, 8 days plus, cultivation, bone refinement intermediate stage plus, Qi blood, 1350, minus 50, cultivation technique, mortal finest grade, fierce tiger strength, comprehension, 30% plus. Seeing this, Luo Qingfeng couldn't help but ponder for a moment. In 1 day's time, about 50 points of Qi blood can be recovered? But what does the plus sign after my cultivation level mean? Could it be that I could advance a minor realm with that 85 points of Qi blood? Or does it mean that I can utilize Qi blood exceeding those 85 points? Although Luo Qingfeng was more inclined to believe the latter, he could not contain his curiosity. He extended his right hand and tapped the plus sign behind his cultivation level. To advance a minor realm, 200 points of Qi blood are required. Would you like to advance, host? Yes, no. 200 points of Qi blood? Even if the family's Qi blood were fully restored, that still would not reach 200 within the safe range. I wonder if I could add 85 points first? Wait until the total Qi blood accumulates to 200, and then break through? Luo Qingfeng was thinking this to himself. And this time, it seemed as if the divine aid had heard the words of his heart, and once again popped up a translucent window in front of Luo Qingfeng. Would you like to consume 85 points of Qi blood for a slight increase in cultivation? Yes, no, 2 options shone bright in Luo Qingfeng's line of sight. Well, would you look at that, it's actually possible? Luo Qingfeng was somewhat surprised. But after his surprise, he extended his withered right hand once again and firmly tapped on the yes button. Here it comes. Luo Qingfeng quietly closed his eyes, feeling the mysterious power that suddenly surged within. With the enhancement of this mystical force, his body was revived anew. His strength grew swiftly, as did his cultivation. However, this state did not last for long. After about half a minute, the mysterious force suddenly disappeared, as if it had never been there. The strength seems to have increased considerably. Although my cultivation has not yet entered the bone refinement refining stage, my power has indeed become stronger than before. In the courtyard, Luo Qingfeng clenched his fists, feeling the power inside him growing more potent. He couldn't help but whisper. Chapter 11 Bone Refinement Late Stage, Idea for Overall Blood Qi Enhancement. One after another increase in strength, Luo Qingfeng once again began a period of closed-door cultivation. And this time, the retreat flew by, 3 days passing in the blink of an eye. At dawn, a gray light brightened the sky. When countless beings of this world were still deep in slumber, on the Luo family ancestral land in Qingxi town, within a courtyard emanating waves of ancient aura, Luo Qingfeng slowly opened his slightly murky eyes. 3 days have passed. He couldn't help but let out a small sigh. He had been in arduous cultivation for a full 3 days. To rapidly enhance his power, he hadn't dared waste a single second over these 3 days. However, the results of this 3-day retreat left Luo Qingfeng somewhat disappointed. Not to mention an increase in cultivation level. Instead, following his 3 days of intense effort, his power had not only failed to grow, it had actually diminished considerably. Not advancing an inch in ability after 3 days of hard cultivation was something Luo Qingfeng could accept. But what he couldn't accept was that, after these 3 days, not only had there been a lack of improvement, but his strength had even slightly declined. Is it because my time is running out? Luo Qingfeng waved his right hand, summoning his own unique golden finger. Name, Luo Qingfeng, lifespan, 5 days plus, cultivation, bone refinement intermediate stage plus, 170 out of 200, Qi blood, 1350, minus 85, PS, safe available Qi blood is 50 points, cultivation technique, mortal's finest, fierce tiger power, comprehension, 30% plus. Indeed, the numbers behind his cultivation level had decreased. If we consider the normal rate of progression, it should already have reached 185 points by now. But as it stood, he had only 170 points, meaning those 3 days had clearly led to a significant regression in Luo Qingfeng's ability. Due to his imminent demise, the depletion rate of his life force had exceeded his initial estimates. First, add 30 points to my Qi blood to raise my cultivation to the bone refinement refining stage. Then, enhance my lifespan by 2 more days. Thinking thus, Luo Qingfeng then extended his hand that was laden with sin and performed a series of actions on the golden finger's attribute panel. Qi blood minus 30, cultivation increasing, Qi blood minus 20, lifespan growing. Following the cold notification sound, a mysterious and extremely powerful energy once again surged within Luo Qingfeng. This time, the mysterious energy lasted for full 3 minutes. Until it had enhanced his bones to a certain level, forcing his cultivation up to the bone refining stage. Did that mysterious force slowly fade away? Name, Luo Qingfen, lifespan, 7 days plus, cultivation, bone refining stage plus, 0 out of 300, chi blood, 1350, minus 135, PS, safe available chi blood is 0 points, cultivation technique, mortal's finest, fierce tiger power, comprehension, 30% plus, these are Luo Qingfeng's current attributes. The plus sign behind his cultivation level still remains. That signifies that, should Luo Qingfeng wish, he could continue to consume the chi blood of other members of the Luo family clan to enhance his own cultivation. However, Luo Qingfeng wouldn't do that. Rather than depleting resources, he preferred the method of a steady flow. It was just that he didn't know how the total amount of chi blood could be rapidly increased. There was also the matter of how to increase the daily recovery amount of chi blood. This daily amount of 50 was indeed a bit too little. Since meditating in seclusion was of no use, Luo Qingfeng stopped the arduous solo cultivation. Instead, he walked out of his courtyard with his hands clasped behind his back, lost in his own thoughts. He strolled at random within the vast Luo family ancestral land. The Luo family, being one of the 4 great families of Qingxi town, naturally had a considerable number of servants within the family. It seemed, however, that the number of Luo family clan members he encountered along the way was a bit low. No wonder the family's total chi blood value is only 1,350 points. With only this many clan members, it's somewhat unrealistic to expect a higher total chi blood. Luo Qingfeng thought to himself as he walked within the lands of the Luo family. As his thoughts began to wander freely, a particular idea suddenly surged in his mind. If every member of the Luo family were to take several more wives and concubines, wouldn't the family's total chi blood increase? Of course, there is a premise here. Would women not of the Luo bloodline, those without the Luo family's blood flowing through their veins, be considered members of the Luo family if they joined it? Logically speaking, once they join the Luo family, they should be regarded as members of the family. But after all, it was not for Luo Qingfeng to decide. Only the golden finger would need to approve. Otherwise, it would be futile no matter what was said. However, regardless, encouraging the Luo family members to have more children, that surely can't be wrong. But how to implement such a thing? As the ancestor of the Luo family, would it be somewhat improper for me to urge them directly? After much thought, Luo Qingfeng finally set aside this idea for the time being. Elder Qingfeng. Outside the library pavilion of the Luo family ancestral land, a building painted entirely black and having an aura of solemnity, stood a young man wearing a scholar's robe and holding a book in hand. He was somewhat thin, with dark circles under his eyes, and as he read the book, he kept yawning repeatedly. Upon seeing Luo Qingfeng, he slightly bowed his head and greeted him with a respectful expression. Luo Chuan, son of Luo King, the current patriarch of the Luo family. Upon seeing the person in front of him, Luo Qingfeng's mind automatically conjured up some matching information. It's you. Luo Qingfeng noticed Luo Chuan's dark circles and his face showing signs of fatigue and couldn't help but ask, what's wrong? Haven't been sleeping well in the past few days? Yes. Luo Chuan put down the book in his hands, glanced at the still vibrant Elder Qingfeng and responded in a low voice, I don't know why, but I have been feeling tired all over for the past few days, and it's been difficult to fall asleep at night. Is that so? Luo Qingfeng narrowed his eyes slightly and nodded silently. I even had the clan's physician take a look, but maybe due to the physician's limited ability, nothing was found. Is it only you within the clan who's in such a state? Asked Luo Qingfeng. Not just me, the majority of our Luo family members are experiencing this, only the severity varies. The servants, however, don't seem to have any problems. Elder Qingfeng, do you know what might be causing this? Luo Chuan asked while silently gazing at Luo Qingfeng's face, which was covered with wrinkles. Perhaps due to a sense of guilt or some other reason, Luo Qingfeng did not meet the gaze of the young man standing before him. Chapter 12 Yang Strengthening Pill? Feng Ying Step? Following an exchange between the two men, Luo Chuan soon left the library pavilion. The current head of the Luo family, Luo Ping's son, Luo Chuan. This little guy is quite interesting. Watching Luo Chuan's figure gradually disappear into the distance, Luo Qingfeng couldn't help but think to himself. As for Luo Chuan's mood at that moment, it was somewhat heavy. The mental state of Elder Qingfeng seemed even better than it had a few days ago. There was no sign at all of the end nearing, no symptom of being halfway into the grave. Given this, it could be that the time of Elder Qingfeng's final rally had arrived at its prime. As time passed, such symptoms would gradually diminish. Until eventually, Elder Qingfeng would reach the very last moment of his life. Father, the time left for our Luo family is running out. Have you made your final decision in your heart? Outside the library pavilion, the atmosphere was solemn and respectful. Inside the library pavilion, it was also silent. Since the library pavilion was one of the most important buildings of the Wo family, it contained a vast collection of cultivation techniques accumulated over more than 300 years. Hence, not just anyone could enter the pavilion. The servants of the Wo family naturally did not have the right to enter. Even those born with the blood of the Wo family were only allowed 3 chances per month to go inside, and each visit to the library pavilion could last no longer than 3 hours. Of course, if there were some clan members with exceptional talents, that would be a different story. After all, these gifted individuals would always enjoy some preferential treatment. Tap tap tap. Just as Luo Qingfeng stepped into the library pavilion of the Wo family and entered the second floor of the pavilion, a series of light footsteps suddenly started approaching from his direction. To learn the art of alchemy, one must first learn to control fire. After mastering the control of fire, one must then become thoroughly acquainted with the effects of various spiritual medicines and whether they can be combined or if they repel each other. No, something's wrong. My research direction seems to have deviated. I originally wanted to study how the aphrodisiac pill was refined. How did I end up starting from scratch and researching the proper way of alchemy? On the second floor of the library pavilion, stood a youth who looked even skinnier than Luo Chuan, with similarly dark circles under his eyes, and furthermore, he seemed to have the kidney-deficient look of someone drained. While carefully reading a book titled Alchemy Quick Success Method, he silently made his way toward Luo Qingfeng. The son of Luoan, Luo Yang, seeing the person before him, Luo Qingfeng's mind instantly matched the youth with the information he had. Patriarch Qingfeng? When did you appear? Upon seeing Luo Qingfeng, Luo Yang immediately jumped in shock, simultaneously hiding the alchemy quick success method he held behind him. When did I appear? Luo Qingfeng, looking at the somewhat panicked Luo Yang, smiled softly and said in a low voice, since you mentioned wanting to study that aphrodisiac pill. Hearing the words of Patriarch Qingfeng, Luo Yang hurriedly tried to explain, Patriarch Qingfeng, things aren't what you think. The aphrodisiac pill actually has many hidden effects. I am not. The more Luo Yang tried to explain, the more he seemed to be making a mess of things. It's okay, I understand. Luo Qingfeng walked over, patted Luo Yang on the shoulder, and then, with his hands clasped behind his back, quietly walked deeper into the second floor of the library pavilion. Sigh. That's it, Elder Qingfeng knows now. Luo Yang looked at the back of Patriarch Qingfeng and sighed helplessly. However, the mental state of Patriarch Qingfeng. Is there something off about it? The library pavilion of the Wo family had 3 floors. The first floor mostly stored books of little value. The most precious among them were merely some run-of-the-mill books on fist and foot techniques. On the second floor of the library pavilion, most of the collections were useful books that the Wo family had gathered from various places over the past 300 years. For example, the alchemy quick success method that Luo Yang had just been looking at. It was one of the special books stored on the second floor of the library pavilion. If we were to rank the cultivation techniques, the highest level ones on the second floor could even reach the level just above the mundane, the lower tier of the common folks level. As for the third floor of the library pavilion, it mainly stored books that the Wo family considered extremely precious. The manuals for cultivation techniques stored there were at least above the lower tier of the common folks level. For instance, the upper tier cultivation technique that Luo Qingfeng had comprehended by 30%, the Fierce Tiger Force. Even within the third floor, it was considered one of the most precious cultivation technique manuals. Alchemy Quick Success. Artifact Refining Quick Success. Planting Compendium. Secrets of Cultivation. Theory of Destiny. Looking at the books in front of him, Luo Qingfeng casually picked up a few and flipped through them. He had intended to try and see if, by just looking at the beginning and gaining some understanding, a special profession like alchemy or artifact refining could appear on the attribute panel of his golden finger. Then, he planned to see if he could use his vital energy to raise the levels of these professions. But it seemed he was somewhat presumptuous. Forget it, let's just go and have a look on the third floor of the library pavilion. With this thought in mind, Luo Qingfeng then headed towards the third floor of the library pavilion. As soon as he entered the third floor of the library pavilion, he could tell that the number of books on the third floor was much less than on the first and second floors. Common Folks Mid-Tier, 3 Steps to Chase the Cicada. Common Folks Upper Tier, Yin Provoking Leg. Common Folks Mid-Tier, Iron Finger Technique. Although there were fewer books on the third floor, the quality of the manuals for cultivation techniques had obviously improved tremendously. 3 Steps to Chase the Cicada, a technique to increase movement speed? Seems quite good. Luo Qingfeng picked up the mid-tier level cultivation technique known as 3 Steps to Chase the Cicada and casually flipped through it. After briefly scanning it, he put down the auxiliary technique for enhancing movement speed that he held in his hand, and quietly walked deeper into the third floor of the library pavilion. On the third floor of the library pavilion, the closer to the center, the fewer the number of books, and naturally, the higher their quality. Until, he reached the very center of the third floor of the library pavilion. He saw an ancient-looking cultivation technique manual neatly placed on a white jade shelf. Common folks upper tier, Fierce Tiger Force. However, Luo Qingfeng's gaze was not attracted by the Fierce Tiger Force. Instead, he was drawn to a book, or rather, half a book of a cultivation technique that was placed in the corner of the white jade shelf. Common folks upper tier, Feng Ying Step, incomplete. Upon seeing this speed-type auxiliary cultivation technique manual, Luo Qingfeng's eyes narrowed slightly. In his mind, he was considering this question: is the entire manual ranked as common folks upper tier, or is just half of the manual considered to be of upper tier? Chapter 13, Superior King Stone Vein, who family one lost in thought for a long time. Luo Qingfeng eventually decided to open and take a look first. So, he squatted down. He took out the Feng Ying Step, incomplete, that was placed at the bottom of the white jade cabinet. Opening it, he began to peruse it carefully. It was fine not to look, but once he did, things became somewhat serious. This object seemed to indeed be half a cultivation technique that could be classified as a top-notch common-grade item. And why say so? The main reason was that this cultivation technique was really too complicated. Even a cursory glance made one feel a bit overwhelmed. It was a bit uncertain how one would even begin to cultivate it. After taking the cultivation technique with him, Luo Qingfeng returned to his own courtyard. He started to study how to begin learning the incomplete Feng Ying Step. After all, he could advance through consuming chi and blood points. As long as he made a start, everything else would be manageable. But if he couldn't even start, then he really wouldn't have any other way. Time flew by swiftly. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. During these 3 days, nothing significant had happened in Qingxi Town. The entire town was still as usual. Aside from the daily increasing number of refugees, bandits claiming the mountains as their own, and the people who were starving to death at home, the vast Qingxi Town was still relatively calm. 7 days have passed. Within the Zhao family ancestral land, one of the 4 major clans of Qingxi Town. Inside the room where the Zhao family head resided, Zhao Wu, the current family head of the Zhao family, was silently calculating the time in his mind. Previously, Dr. Wang, also known as Wang Kun, had said that the old guy at the Luo family ancestral land could live at most for another half a month. Now, 7 days had gone by. Presumably, even if the old guy in the Luo family ancestral land wasn't dead, he should be at his last gasp, right? Someone. Suddenly, Zhao Wu called out loudly to the servant outside his room. Family head, what are your orders? The servant entered the room, bowing slightly, his expression appearing quite respectful. Is there any news from the Luo side? Zhao Wu asked in a low voice. Regarding this question, the servant of the Zhao family silently shook his head. All right, I got it, you can leave. Zhao Wu waved his hand calmly. Just as he was about to deal with some trivial family affairs, the young master of the Zhao family, Zhao Qian, was hurriedly scurrying into the room. Dad, great news, huge news. Great news? Zhao Wu, hearing this, quickly stood up. Is it that the old guy in the Luo family clan land died? No, it's not that. Zhao Qian took several deep breaths before he managed to explain. If not that, then what good news is it? Zhao Wu, a bit disappointed, sat back in his chair, looking calmly at Zhao Qian. Dad, the team we from the Zhao family sent out to explore the King Stone Veins has sent a message back. They say that outside Qingxi Town, a top-grade King Stone Vein has been discovered. A rough estimate suggests that the length of the vein might even reach 300 meters. A 300-meter-long top-grade King Stone Vein? Zhao Wu, hearing this, stood up again, his expression somewhat excited as he asked, are you sure about this? Dad, this information is absolutely true. Those people below wouldn't dare to deceive us with this kind of news. However, as he spoke, Zhao Qian suddenly became hesitant. However what? Zhao Wu's brows furrowed slightly, a bad premonition vaguely emerging in his heart. However, that roughly 300-meter-long Qingxi Ore vein is also known to the Luo family. Moreover, that Luo Yang from the Luo family brought a good number of elite house servants to station near that premium Qingxi Ore vein. They even drove out all of our Zhao family's people from there. As Zhao Qian finished these words, the atmosphere in the room suddenly turned somewhat strange. How dare the third one of the Luo family do this? How does he dare to act like this? The more Zhao Wu spoke, the more furious he became. He even felt an urge to directly lead a group to slaughter the third member of the Luo family. But, thoughts are thoughts, reality is reality. The reality is that even if Zhao Wu had the ability to kill that third member of the Luo family, his Zhao family would definitely be severely harmed by the Luo family. In these chaotic times, if a family's strength were to be damaged, it would virtually be no different from the family's extinction. This kind of action would be too great a loss for too little gain. Father, what should our Zhao family do next? Just watch as the Wu family takes that premium kingshi or vein for themselves? Zhao Qian felt somewhat unwilling in his heart. Even though he did not know much about the family's industries. And for the information about this so-called premium kingshi or vein, his knowledge was also quite limited. But at least, what he knew was, this approximately 300-meter-long premium kingshi or vein could definitely be compared to a gold mine. Even more so in these chaotic times. The price of such strong and durable kingshi was bound to soar. If it truly came to that time, the Wu family could surely use this premium kingshi or vein in their hands, and transform themselves overnight into the strongest family within Kingshi Town. As of now, all we can do is wait. Inside the room, Zhao Wu's complexion turned slightly unsightly. Wait? Wait for what? Zhao Qian didn't quite understand what his father was getting at. The time is not yet ripe, we can only wait until that old thing in the Wu family ancestral land passes away. Wait until the discord among the three brothers within the Wu family ancestral land intensifies. That will be our Zhao family's best opportunity to make a move, Zhao Wu said in a low voice. After finishing these words, he lowered his head and began to deal with some of the recent matters within the family, no longer paying attention to his somewhat useless son Zhao Qian. Within Kingshi Town, aside from the Wu family and Zhao family, there was also the Jing family, which controlled all the gambling dens, and the He family, which controlled all the marketplaces. Since the Jing family opened a large number of gambling dens within Kingshi Town and was making a fortune every day, and furthermore, as they did not understand the mining and selling of the kingshi or veins, they were not particularly concerned about the newly discovered premium kingshi or vein outside the town. But the He family, which controlled all the marketplaces within Kingshi Town, was extremely curious about this matter. Minute, sir, who do you think will be the victor between the Wu and Zhao families in the end? In the He family ancestral land, within a courtyard pleasing to the eye, under a pavilion made of kingshi, there was Hu Da, the current family head of the He family, and his son, that is, the current young master of the He family, Hu Minutes. The two of them sat on opposite sides of a stone table beneath the pavilion, playing a game of chess and chatting in low voices. If it's just between the Wu and Zhao families, it's likely that the Zhao family will be the final victor. Near Kingshi Town, a premium kingshi or vein roughly 300 meters long was discovered. Given this, the Zhao family head can actually hold back and not be moved. This shows that the Zhao family head is no ordinary individual. Furthermore, there have been rumors recently that the ancestor of the Wu family within the Wu family ancestral land is reaching the end of his days and will not live much longer. If the Wu family loses the suppression of their ancestor, the discord among the three brothers will undoubtedly worsen over time. And if the Wu family comes to that point, their downfall will not be too far away. Chapter 14 Entry to Fenning Step, Decrease Total Qi and Blood. 1 Within Kingshi Town, the coexistence of the four major families has been maintained for over 300 years. If the Wu family were suddenly annihilated by the Zhao family, the balance within Kingshi Town, I am afraid it would trigger some unforeseeable changes. Underneath the stone pavilion, Hu Da spoke in a low voice. So what you mean is, father? Hu Minutes suddenly stopped what he was doing. He looked up and silently gazed at his father, Hu Da. What I mean is, if. What I am saying here is an if. If our He family were to lend the Wu family a hand at this critical juncture, engaging in a strategic marriage between our families, what do you think? A marriage alliance? On hearing this, Hu Minutes couldn't help but lower his gaze slightly, his face revealing a contemplative expression. If I remember correctly, the current patriarch of the Wu family, Luo King, besides having a son, Luo Chuan, seems to have an unwed daughter in her prime. As Hu Da chuckled, he looked at his son before him and whispered. Father, are you suggesting that I marry the daughter of the Wu family patriarch? Hu Minutes seemed somewhat surprised. What, is that not acceptable? It's not that it isn't, it's just that I have heard the daughter of the Wu family patriarch is rather frail and sickly, suffering from a cold that affects her whole body every night. Especially on full moon nights, bizarre screams are often heard coming from the Wu family patriarch's daughter's room. Father, if I do marry the daughter of the Wu family patriarch, I fear she might not survive 3 to 5 months before meeting a tragic death on the He family ancestral land. Such an ominous affair. Enough. Hu Da waved his hand, stopping Hu Minutes from continuing. With an air of unmistakable authority, he decreed, this matter is settled. Minutes, remember that the family's interests are above everything else. Moreover, marrying the Wu family patriarch's daughter doesn't mean you can't continue to take concubines. In 3 days, you will accompany me to propose to the Wu family. After finishing his statement, Hu Da, the current family head of the He family, stood up straight away. Disregarding the unfinished chess game, he silently walked into the distance. Family interests, Above everything else? Underneath the stone pavilion, Hu Minutes watched his father's receding figure. He let out a slight sigh. With a somewhat helpless shake of his head. Although he was somewhat reluctant to agree to this marriage, what his father had just said was indeed true. In front of family interests, some small sacrifices were inevitable. Time passed, and before long, 3 days had gone by. Qingshi Town, the Wu family clan land. In the courtyard where the ancestor of the Wu family resided. At that moment, Luo Qingfeng was sitting quietly under a pavilion made of kingstone. In his hands, he held. No, more accurately, it should be called half a cultivation technique manual, which he was carefully examining. Until, after maintaining such a state for about half an hour, Luo Qingfeng placed the half of the cultivation technique that was in his hand slowly on a kingstone table. This Feng Ying step is indeed quite complex. Judging from the content on the cultivation technique, it seems unlikely to master the Feng Ying step without 3 to 5 years of practice. However, if one only seeks to get a grasp of the basics, that shouldn't be too difficult. Thinking this to himself, Luo Qingfeng then stood up and moved to an open space. He took a deep breath and exhaled it slowly. Striving to control the speed and rhythm of the blood flow in his body, he gradually channeled his blood into specific points in his legs. Suddenly, he stepped forward. However, it was just this one step that somewhat shocked him. With each step he took, a whistling breeze swirled around his feet. The speed seemed to be 3 times faster than usual. Is this the Feng Ying step that can be rated as a top-notch commoner technique with only half the manual? Indeed, there's something extraordinary about it. After experiencing the marvel of the Feng Ying step, Luo Qingfeng delighted in practicing it in an open courtyard. Until, he gradually became familiar with the Feng Ying step. His proficiency slowly reached a beginner's level, he then slowly came to a stop. He opened his attribute panel. Name, Luo Qingfeng, lifespan, 4 days plus, cultivation level, bone refinement late stage plus, 90 out of 300, chi blood, 1330, minus 83, PS, safe usable chi blood is 50 points, cultivation technique, top-notch commoner technique, fierce tiger strength, comprehension, 30% plus, top-notch commoner technique, Feng Ying step, comprehension, 1% plus, incomplete. These were his latest attributes for today. As time had passed 3 days, his remaining lifespan was now 4 days, there was no problem there. The experience value behind his cultivation level was at 90 points, which was also fine. Although, due to chi blood depletion and various other reasons over these 3 days, he had lost 10 points. But that made sense. However, this number behind the chi blood was something not quite right? If his memory served him correctly, shouldn't the number after chi blood be 1350? Even yesterday, it appeared to still be 1350 points of chi blood. Why did it suddenly drop by 20 points today? Could it be that within the Wu family ancestral land, someone's life was drawing to a close, passing away in peace? Or was there an unexpected demise? Many thoughts flashed through Luo Qingfeng's mind. However, he couldn't come up with an accurate answer. Out of helplessness, he could only have someone call over Luo Qing, the current patriarch of the Wu family, to ask. Patriarch Qingfeng, you were looking for me? Outside a stone pavilion in the courtyard, filled with a simple and ancient aura, Luo Qing, dressed in a light green robe, quietly glanced over. He saw Luo Qingfeng's gradually pale face and a live force in his eyes that was increasingly mixed with a hint of death. His mood suddenly grew much heavier. The Wu family was currently in turmoil. Due to his third brother, Luo Yang, forcibly seizing that top-grade Qingshi ore vein. The Wu family had recently been under close watch by the Zhao family. If at this time, something truly happened to their patriarch Qingfeng, the situation of the Wu family would become very, very dire in an instant. What has happened within the Wu family ancestral land recently? As the atmosphere between the two grew increasingly solemn, Luo Qingfeng was the first to break the silence. He inquired in a low voice to the Wu Ping in front of him. Ah! Ancestor, weren't you dictating your last will? Upon hearing Luo Qingfeng's words, Luo Ping suddenly lifted his head, his face full of surprise. What did you just say? Luo Qingfeng's eyebrows involuntarily furrowed slightly. Nothing, nothing. Luo Ping hurriedly shook his head, then proceeded to answer the questions posed by Luo Qingfeng. Chapter 15 Matrimonial Matters 1 A vein of premium Qingshi stone, about 300 meters long. The Zhao family has actually given up on it directly, and let it go to our Luo family. Hearing what Luo Ping said, Luo Qingfeng's eyes couldn't help but narrow slightly. Because he had inherited the memory of his predecessor. Therefore, he was relatively familiar with the value of the Qingshi stone vein. Lower-tier Qingshi stone veins, mid-tier Qingshi stone veins. The Luo family had them all. Even for an upper-tier Qingshi stone vein that was above mid-tier, the Luo family had one. However, it was only about 50 meters long. Yet even so, that 50-meter-long upper-tier Kingshi stone vein had brought great benefits to the Wo family. It could even be said that about 30% of the Wo family's profits came from that upper-tier Kingshi stone vein. Let alone that premium vein that was about 300 meters long. Would the Zhao family really let go of such a tremendously valuable premium Kingshi stone vein so easily? Could it be that the current head of the Zhao family is waiting for me, Luo Qingfen, to die? After which, they would slowly deal with the Wo family. No, that's not right. Beneath the stone pavilion, Luo Qingfen, who had been pondering for a while, suddenly shook his head. It seemed that he might have been somewhat led astray by that kid, Luo King. The most pressing issue right now shouldn't be about the premium Kingshi stone vein, but rather, figuring out what was going on with the sudden loss of 20 points of life force. Has anyone in the Luo family ancestral land passed away recently? Although Luo King was quite surprised by his ancestor's question, he still shook his head and answered. No. After pondering for a moment, Luo Qingfen asked again, then in recent days, has any woman from the clan been married off? This time, Luo Ping nodded. So there really was. Luo Qingfen suddenly felt a headache coming on. If it were so, that after marrying off, females of the Wo family were no longer recognized by the Golden Finger as part of the Wo family, then the matter would become somewhat troublesome. Being the ancestor of the Wo family, he couldn't exactly tell Luo Ping directly, from now on, the womenfolk of the Wo family could not marry out. Only that the men must marry into the family, correct? If that were really the case, it would be somewhat unreasonable. I understand, you may leave now. Luo Qingfen waved his hand somewhat helplessly. Seeing this, Luo Ping bowed slightly and then turned around, walking out of the courtyard. In the blink of an eye, it was already midday. At this time, the sun hung high in the sky. The scorching sunlight spilled over the land, making the already dry and hot air gradually become even more terrifyingly warm. Father, do we really have to go through with this? Outside the He family ancestral land in Kingshi town, to Hu Minutes, the young master of the He family, it seemed that he still wanted to struggle one last time. To make that sickly woman, who was close to death, his wife, Hu Minutes really was somewhat unwilling. I have said before, the interests of the family come before everything else. The ancestor of the Wo family is nearing his end, already half buried in the yellow earth. The conflicts between the three Wo brothers are also continuous and unending. Once the ancestor of the Wo family dies, the disputes among the Wo brothers will inevitably burst out over time. By then, it will be reasonable for our He family to intervene in the Wo family's affairs. The profits from the Kingshi stone veins are not less than the profits from the markets we He family control. So, there's no room for negotiation on this matter. Having said that, Hu Die led a large entourage of He family servants, along with a generous array of gifts. He headed in the direction of the Wo family ancestral land. Outside the He family land, Hu Minutes watched his father's retreating figure and sighed softly. He wasn't entirely happy with the situation. But since his father had put it that way, what could he do? Could he possibly argue with his father's decision? Despite being the young master of the He family, Hu Minutes didn't have the courage to do so. After all, his father, the family head of the He family, didn't have him as his only son. If Hu Minutes carelessly displeased his father, whether he could retain his position as the young master of the He family would be uncertain. Although Kingshi town wasn't very large, the lands of the top 4 families of Kingshi town were located in the 4 cardinal directions, east, south, west, and north. Together with a large number of displaced people on the streets, the journey from the He family land to the Wo family land took the Hu party about half an hour. My lord Hu Die, the family head of the He family, requests an audience with the Wo family patriarch, a He family servant said urgently as he scurried to the main entrance of the Wo family. He announced loudly to 2 Wo house servants who were guarding the door. The He family? Why would the He family suddenly come to our Wo family? Why ponder so much, just report the visit promptly, replied one. The 2 servants at the gate were somewhat perplexed about the purpose of the He family's visit, but after all, they were just 2 servants of the Wo family. When it came to the matter of the He family head seeking an audience with the Wo family patriarch, the Wo house servants certainly did not dare to delay in their actions. After being reported by the 2 Wo house servants, Hu Die, the family head of the He family, and Hu Minutes, the young master, were subsequently admitted into the Wo family ancestral land. As for the servants of the He family, they were naturally left outside the Wo family ancestral land. After all, this was one of the top 4 familial territories in Kingshi town, the Wo family clan area, a place not just anyone could freely enter or exit. Following a Wo servant who guided them, Hu Die and 2 Minutes soon arrived at the guest hall of the Wo family ancestral land. At that moment, Luo King, the current family patriarch of the Wo family, was quietly sitting in the main seat, leisurely drinking tea, and looking at the two men in front of him as he asked in a low voice, "I wonder what brings the family head of the He family to the Wo family? For a marriage alliance, of course." Hudia stepped forward with a small smile, casually sitting in a nearby armchair, and said, "A marriage alliance?" Wo Ping, upon hearing this, immediately put down a porcelain teacup in his hand, and looked at Hudia with a somewhat serious expression. "Yes, a marriage alliance," Hudia nodded slightly, then continued, "Who in Qingxi Town isn't aware of the current situation of the Wo family? In addition, your Wo family has secured that upper-tier Kingstone vein measuring more than 300 meters for yourselves. It's likely that the Zhao family has set their sights firmly on the Wo family at this point, have they not? If the Wo family were to form a marriage alliance with our He family now, joining forces together, I won't speak of other benefits, but at least the Zhao family wouldn't dare to trouble the Wo family so easily. Hence, the marriage alliance is a win-win for both your Wo family and our Hu family. I wonder what the Wo family patriarch thinks of this proposal." Chapter 16 Refusal to Ally. Tearing off the mask. The words of the He family head were not untrue. The current situation of the Wo family was like a lone boat in the midst of a violent storm. At any moment, it might be completely overturned. And if, at this critical juncture, they were to enter into a marriage alliance with the He family, indeed, it would be a great boon for the Wo family. I wonder, has the Hu family head already chosen the person for the marriage alliance? Wo Ping hesitated for a moment but ultimately still asked this question. "Luo Yui and my son, the young master Hu Minutes, to be joined in marriage. What does the Wo family patriarch think of this proposal?" In the room, Hudia said with a smile on his face. Hu Minutes' eyes, meanwhile, flickered with a deep loathing that passed in an instant. "Minutes, sir." Hudia saw that Hu Minutes did not react, slightly furrowed his brow, and called out in a subdued voice. "Sigh." With a somewhat helpless sigh, Hu Minutes then stood up and walked to the center of the room. He bowed his head slightly towards Luo Ping, the Wo family patriarch, and clasped his hands in greeting. He said softly, "Please, Uncle Luo, grant us your blessing." Following this series of maneuvers by the He father and son, the atmosphere in the room suddenly became somewhat uneasy. Luo Ping, seated in the seat of honor, looked at the He family head, Hudia, who was smiling beside him, and at Hu Minutes standing before him, head bowed low, waist bent. Though seemingly extremely respectful, his eyes hid a deep disdain and aversion. Luo Ping's face couldn't help but twitch a little. If the He family had come with the intention of seeking a marriage alliance with another unwed girl of the Wo family, he would have carefully weighed the pros and cons. But if the object of the marriage alliance was his sickly daughter Luo Yui, who endured endless torment and pain every full moon night, then Luo Ping would never easily agree to this marriage. If the He family head's intended object of marriage is my daughter, then please leave. Luo Ping took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. After stabilizing his somewhat fluctuating emotions, he once again picked up the cup of tea beside him. He paid no more attention to Hudia beside him. "You want us to leave?" Hudia seemed somewhat surprised when he heard this. Is the Wo family patriarch sure he wants us to go? The current situation of the Wo family is precarious, at any moment facing the danger of destruction. Without the help of our Hu family, the future of the Wo family is worrisome. Given such circumstances, does the Wo family patriarch really want us to leave? Seeing that Luo Ping was extremely unwilling to proceed with the marriage, Hudia had no choice but to pressure him with the future of the Wo family. If Luo Ping still wanted the Wo family to continue to exist in Qingxi Town, the marriage alliance would be unavoidable. But if Luo Ping would rather see the Wo family gradually decline than agree to a marriage alliance with the Hu family, then Hudia really had no good way to deal with the Wo family. "Someone, show the guests out." After finishing the tea in his cup, Luo Ping called out to the Wo family servants outside the door in a loud voice. And since Hudia and Luo Ping had already laid bare their animosity and could no longer continue the discussion, Hudia, as the current Hu family head, could only stand up reluctantly and with some anger, and looking at Luo Ping seated in the place of honor, he left these harsh words, "Humphrey, Luo Ping, you will regret this. When your Luo family faces destruction, when your Luo family clan is being slaughtered by the Zhao family, you will regret not accepting the marriage I proposed." A moment later, Hudia and his son Hu Minutes were invited out of the Wo family ancestral land by the Wo family servants. Although Hudia was furious about this, angry at Luo Ping's failure to see the bigger picture, as the young master of the He family, Hu Minutes felt as if a great weight had finally been lifted from his chest and he let out a long sigh of relief. "Father, the marriage alliance was rejected by the Wo family patriarch. What should our He family do next? Those high-value Kingstone mines near Qingxi Town, do we no longer have a chance?" With caution, Hu Minutes glanced at his father's expression before asking softly. "No, our He family still has a chance." Leading the He family servants, Hudia spoke quietly while walking toward the direction of the He family land. Originally, I thought that by forming a marriage alliance with the Wo family, we could then gradually get involved in the business of the King's stone mines that are in the hands of the Wo family. But what I didn't expect was that Luo Ping would reject my proposal without hesitation. Since Luo Ping has made such a decision, he can't blame us, the He family, for being ruthless. Ruthless? Hu Minutse's brow furrowed slightly at his father's words, and he asked uncertainly, does father plan to join forces with the Zhao family and then gradually swallow up the Wo family's assets? No. Hudia suddenly turned his head to look in the direction of the Wo family land, saying in a cold voice, I want to see one of the 4 major families in Qingxi town, the Wo family, collapse. I want to see the Zhao family and the Wo family struggle against each other, while our He family becomes the fisherman who reaps the benefits in the end. During the journey, Hu Minutes listened to his father's words. His heart was truly shaken. As for how to be a good fisherman, how to take advantage of the Zhao family and the Wo family's infighting to annex the Wo family's assets, all these matters filled Hu Minutes' heart with doubt. On the way back to the Hu family land, he wanted to ask this question several times. But after thinking it through carefully, he didn't voice the doubts in his mind. He didn't want to leave a bad impression of stupidity in his father's heart because of these questions. He didn't want to lose his position as the young master of the He family because of them. After the departure of the He family father and son, silence once again fell in the guest hall of the Wo family land. However, this silence did not last for long. As Luo Ping's son and the current young master of the Wo family, Luo Chuan, emerged from a hidden corner, the limitless silence was suddenly broken. Kuener, you must have heard everything that was just said? Hudia is right. If our Luo family were to form a marriage alliance with the He family, indeed the Zhao family would not dare to act rashly. However, as the Wo family patriarch, I have refused such a marriage. What do you think? Was my decision wrong? Luo Ping looked at his son Luo Chuan with an expression that was struggling somewhat. If it had been a good match, if it had been someone his daughter liked, then what would have been the harm in agreeing to the marriage alliance? But the issue was that the He family's proposal for marriage was purpose-driven. The flicker of disdain and disgust that passed through Hu Minutes' eyes, Luo Ping had seen it clearly. So tell me, with someone like that, could Luo Ping possibly agree to the marriage? Chapter 17 Luo Ping, I have to make a choice now. One father, what's the point of thinking about these things when they have already happened? Dressed in white, Luo Chuan said with a smile in a low voice. As the head of the family, he had control over the lives and deaths of hundreds of family members. He had outright rejected the marriage alliance with the He family. Such an action was, of course, somewhat irresponsible. Even though the marriage alliance with the He family was clearly purposeful. But if it was simply as a father, rejecting such an unreliable marriage proposal for his daughter, then there was certainly no mistake. Yes, you are right, Luo Ping nodded silently, then continued, since it has already happened, speaking of these things is indeed pointless. But, Kuener, what I want to know is, will our Luo family really come to the point of extinction, as the head of the He family said? Upon hearing this, the smile on Luo Chuan's face gradually faded. In those jet black, profound eyes brimming with wisdom, flashes of light passed by transiently. However, it was just a moment later. Luo Chuan sighed somewhat helplessly and said in a low voice, the situation is not optimistic. Father, our Luo family is not without a chance, as long as Uncle An can truly cooperate with you. As long as Uncle Yang isn't thinking about making his mark in these troubled times. Our Luo family won't necessarily come to the worst end, it's just. As he spoke, Luo Chuan couldn't help but give a bitter smile and shake his head, it's just, achieving that is easier said than done, right? From what Luo Chuan knew of his 2 uncles, Uncle An was alright, even though he was not completely aligned with his father. But at least, Uncle An wouldn't recklessly run around in these troubled times. At least, Uncle An wouldn't watch the family step by step into a place of no return. But as for his third uncle, Luo Yang? To say that third uncle Luo Yang was a buffoon would be a compliment. Although third uncle controlled most of the Luo family's elite house servants, and possessed the bone refinement perfection realm, making him the strongest in the family, even in the whole Qingxi town, looking at Uncle Yang's public strength, he could at least be ranked among the top 5. Moreover, if he really fought desperately, Luo Chuan believed that his third uncle could definitely trade blows to the limit with any top expert in Qingxi town. But the biggest problem was that his third uncle was extremely emotional. Even if it were made clear to third uncle Luo Yang that the Luo family might face dangers if he went on adventures, his third uncle might still get carried away by other people's instigations and act impulsively, temporarily forgetting the safety of the Luo family. So, father, the time left for you, for our Luo family, is running out. You make your decision as soon as possible. After saying these words, Luo Chuan gave a slight bow to his father and then, He turned and left the hall where they received guests. Is my time really running out? Watching his son's retreating figure, Luo Ping's mood grew increasingly heavy. Earlier this morning, he had met with the family's ancestor Qingfeng. Visibly, Elder Qingfeng's complexion seemed paler than it had been a few days ago. His vitality had also declined compared to the previous days. Even the decaying aura that had dissipated a bit recently, he had smelled it once again by Elder Qingfeng's side that very morning. Although Luo Ping was somewhat reluctant to believe it, it seemed that the signs of Patriarch Qingfeng's final burst of energy were gradually fading away. The day of Elder Qingfeng's predestined end was probably not far off. Perhaps, what Qun'er said before was right. Now, the Zhao family is watching our Luo family like a hawk. And the He family is also lurking nearby, covetously watching. Although neither family has made a move yet, as soon as Patriarch Qingfeng passes away, I fear that a crisis for our Luo family will follow one after another. If we truly wish for the bloodline of our Luo family to continue, we indeed should choose a desolate mountain and live in seclusion. In the blink of an eye, another day had passed. In Qingxi town, within the Luo family ancestral land, in the courtyard where the ancestor of the Luo family resided, Luo Qingfeng was sprinting back and forth relentlessly on a patch of open ground. Gusts of wind howled through the courtyard. His speed seemed to be increasing as time passed. After about 10 more minutes had elapsed, when Luo Qingfeng had nearly exhausted his chi blood, only then did he stop practicing the Feng Ying steps. He opened his own unique golden finger. Name, Luo Qingfeng, lifespan, 3 days plus, cultivation, bone refinement late stage plus, 85 out of 300, chi blood, 1330, minus 33, PS, safe usable chi blood is 100 points, cultivation technique, mortal top grade, fierce tiger power, comprehension, 30% plus, mortal top grade, Feng Ying steps, comprehension, 1.5% plus, incomplete. These were his latest attributes for the day. As a day had passed, the lifespan that remained had decreased by 1 day. Due to his impending end, chi blood was severely depleted. Losing 5 experience points in a day, resulting in the current 85, was considered normal. Regarding the chi blood value, it was because Luo Qingfeng had chosen not to use chi blood for leveling up the previous day, so there were 50 more points available for safe use. This diminishing lifespan is a major problem. If it's not resolved, chi blood will continue to decline. But my cultivation is still a small realm and a bottleneck away from the organ refinement realm. It will take some time to raise my cultivation to the organ refinement realm. So, I should first focus on enhancing my cultivation. Once I reach the organ refinement realm, my lifespan will extend by 20 years. By that time, the issue of insufficient lifespan will naturally be resolved. With this in mind, Luo Qingfeng stretched out his sin-ridden right hand, and tapped the plus sign next to the cultivation. Of course, he did not allocate all his chi blood to his cultivation. Instead, he separated an additional 20 points of chi blood to add to his lifespan, which was only 3 days remaining. He certainly did not want to die because of a miscalculation while performing this extreme operation. After adding 80 points of chi blood to his cultivation, along with 2 days to his lifespan, a mysterious and powerful force surged once again within Luo Qingfeng's body. This force circulated within him once, strengthening the bones in every part of his body slightly, before slowly dissipating. Now, it's just a matter of waiting quietly. Waiting until I enhance my cultivation to the viscera refinement realm. Then, within this vast Qingxi town, there probably won't be anyone who can threaten me, Luo Qingfeng. Chapter 18 The Hidden Strength of the Zhao Family. One Qingxi town wasn't particularly large, but it also wasn't small. Over at the He family, although they were fervently trying to conceal it, just yesterday they had approached the door of the Luo family to discuss a marriage alliance. But the Zhao family was, after all, one of the 4 great families of Qingxi town. In terms of collecting various kinds of information and intelligence within Qingxi town, they were not far behind the other families. The He family has overstepped their bounds. Qingxi town, on the Zhao family's territory. Inside a room where the light was just a shade dim, Zhao Wu, the current head of the Zhao family, was now seated silently in the main seat. In front of him stood a mysterious man clad in black, silently standing there with his head slightly bowed. In Qingxi town, the coexistence of the 4 great families has been maintained for over 300 years. My Zhao family, as well as the Luo family, control the mining and sale of the Qingxi ore veins nearby Qingxi town. The He family, on the other hand, controls all commercial operations within the town's markets. The Jing family controls all the gambling houses within Qingxi town. The 4 great families do not encroach upon each other's territory. And now, the He family thinks to meddle with the mining and sale of the Qingxi ore veins near Qingxi town by contemplating a marriage alliance with the Luo family. This is somewhat against the rules. The more Zhao Wu thought about it, The darker his expression became, did the marriage alliance between the Hu family and the Wo family succeed? After a long silence, Zhao Wu suddenly asked the black-clad man standing in front of him in a low voice. The man in black simply shook his head without a word, his voice somewhat hoarse as he spoke. Family head, the marriage alliance between the Hu family and the Wo family did not come to fruition. The exact reasons are still unknown. As the words of the man in black concluded, Zhao Wu's face finally looked a bit better. Since the alliance between the Hu and the Wo families hadn't came to pass, all was still negotiable. As for the reason why their talks had failed, Zhao Wu wasn't particularly concerned. Moving forward, pay close attention to every move the Wo family makes. And also, that exceptionally high-grade Qingshi or vein that's about 300 meters long. Having said that, Zhao Wu waved his hand dismissively. As the man in black gradually disappeared from the room, another figure, one slender, of an unremarkable appearance and a pallid complexion that hinted at poor health, emerged quietly from a corner. This was a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man was named Jiao Qi. He was once a top scholar of the Daifang dynasty. However, due to various reasons, Jiao Qi had been vilified by countless people. They alleged his scholarly achievements were all fraudulently obtained, and even his title as top scholar had been forcibly stripped by those in the halls of the Daifang dynasty. As for his own fate, he had been stripped of all his property and banished to a destitute land. As to why he suddenly appeared here? That could only be described as the result of an accident. You heard everything just now, didn't you, sir? What do you think about this matter? Looking at the extremely pale, frail middle-aged man in front of him, Zhao Wu suddenly posed the question. When the snipe and clam grapple, it's the fisherman who profits, replied Jiao Qi, not with a lengthy discourse, but with a simple, calmly spoken proverb. When the snipe and clam grapple, it's the fisherman who profits. After receiving the reply, Zhao Wu couldn't help but laugh. As time passed, his laughter grew louder, becoming increasingly wild and unrestrained. Years of drought, numerous refugees. Either declare an uprising or become an outlaw. This era of chaos has already descended. My Zhao family dares to challenge the Wo family, daring to break the balance of the four major families within Qingshi town that has lasted for more than 300 years. Naturally, we have enough confidence. But the Hu family, how do they dare? Do they really think that after marrying into the Wo family, my Zhao family would not dare to touch them? Now, after the talks of marriage alliance with the Wo family have collapsed, they even want to be the beneficiary fishermen? But how can the Hu family be sure whether they are the beneficiary fishermen, or the ignorant and arrogant praying mantis? Having said all this, Zhao Wu's previously fluctuating emotions had gradually subsided. You may leave now. Zhao Wu looked at Jiao Qi in front of him and waved his hand, speaking in a low voice. And just as Jiao Qi turned around and was about to leave the room, Zhao Wu seemed to have remembered something and added, "Oh yes, when you return to the stronghold, remember to tell my younger brother to expand the size of the stronghold as swiftly as possible. The world is becoming increasingly tumultuous. To gain a better position in this chaotic world, even to compete for supremacy, one must hold enough power in their hands." After saying this, Zhao Wu spoke no more. Outside the room, Jiao Qi's footsteps hesitated for a moment, and soon, he disappeared from Zhao Wu's line of sight, leaving the vast grounds of the Zhao family. At the time the Zhao family received this news, the Jing family, one of the four major families of Qingshi town holding control of all the gambling houses in town, had also already become clearly aware of this news. "Father, what is your take on this Hu family matter?" In the Jing family estate, a young girl clad in iron armor, holding a red tasseled spear, with a spirited face and quite a handsome appearance, suddenly burst into the room where her father was. Curiosity plastered on her face, she loudly asked the man with a thick beard in front of her. "Sister, you know about this too?" Jing Chang, who was in the room, looked somewhat surprised as he glanced towards where his older sister stood. "Hong Ying, how many times have I said it? Can't you announce your presence before coming in?" The bearded, robust, and rough-looking family head, Jing Qinglong, looked helplessly at his daughter in front of him and said, "Next time for sure, next time for sure." Jing Hongying, somewhat embarrassed, scratched her nose and then asked again, "So, what is your take on this Hu family matter, father?" "What do I think? How else can I think? Obviously with my eyes, of course," Jing Qinglong casually replied. "Father, I am asking for your opinion, could you please take this seriously?" "Alright, seriously, seriously." Jing Qinglong nodded his head and straightened his previously slumped posture. He looked at his daughter, Jing Hongying, who cared not for women's crafts but instead for wielding weapons, and he said with a serious expression, "This marriage alliance of the Hu family is clearly an attempt to encroach upon that complete industrial chain that should not belong to them. Indeed, I am referring to the industry chain related to the mining and selling of Qingxi ore veins. As for why the marriage alliance between the Hu family and the Wo family fell through, that I am not sure about. What is your view on the Zhao family, father? Jing Hongying, nodding silently, inquired further. The Zhao family, well. Jing Qinglong, speaking, suddenly paused for a moment, his expression gradually becoming more serious as he continued. I always have a feeling that there's more to the Zhao family than meets the eye. The recent actions of the Zhao family are somewhat abnormal. Giving a top-quality Qingxi ore vein that stretches over 300 meters to the Wo family is yet another proof of my thoughts. Jing Hongying, what thoughts? The Zhao family is likely planning to wait until the ancestor of the Wo family dies before making a move on the Wo family, gradually swallowing them whole. And since the Zhao family dares to take such actions, even risking harming themselves, I have reason to suspect that the strength of the Zhao family may very well extend beyond what we have seen. Chapter 19, Cultivation Breakthrough, Bone Refinement Perfection 1. With Jing Qinglong's words spoken, the atmosphere in the room immediately grew somber. Dad, these are just your personal conjectures, right? They are not necessarily true, right? Jing Chang, whose complexion was still somewhat youthful, couldn't withstand the oppressive silence. Thus, he spoke out to break the quiet. Seeing his son and daughter shocked by his words, Jing Qinglong laughed heartily twice, then whispered softly, Zhao Chang is not wrong, these are merely my personal guesses and should not be taken as truth. However, as for the actual situation with the Zhao family, who knows if it is as I have described, other than the family head of the Zhao family, Zhao Wu himself. In the blink of an eye, another 3 days had passed. During these 3 days, the situation within Qingxi town remained one of coexistence among the 4 major families. To outsiders, the structure of coexistence among the 4 major families within Qingxi town seemed very stable. But in the eyes of the strongest families and some first-rate families within Qingxi town, the current calm was merely the calm before the storm. This coexistence among the 4 major families was likely not sustainable for much longer. As for how long exactly this time would be, nobody knew an exact number. Qingxi town, Luo family ancestral land. In the courtyard where Patriarch Luo Qingfeng of the Luo family resided, Luo Qingfeng was currently sitting cross-legged on a patch of open ground. In front of him, a semi-transparent attribute panel was hovering in the air. Indeed, it was his very own unique golden finger. Name, Luo Qingfeng, lifespan, 2 days plus, cultivation, bone refinement late stage plus 250 out of 300, chi blood, 1330, minus 83, cultivation technique, mortal finest grade, fierce tiger power, comprehension, 30% plus, mortal finest grade, Feng Ying steps, comprehension, 3% plus incomplete, since 3 more days had passed, and he had allocated his chi blood to his cultivation for the past 2 days, his already limited lifespan had dwindled to its last 2 days. After deducting 15 experience points for cultivation due to 3 days of decay, adding 100 points of experience for 2 days of cultivation, and naturally regaining 50 chi blood points today, I could just forcefully accumulate enough cultivation to reach bone refinement perfection stage. Thinking this in his heart, Luo Qingfeng then extended his sin-laden, emaciated right hand, and pressed down heavily on the plus sign next to his cultivation level. 50 points of chi blood are being deducted, cultivation is increasing, as the cold voice echoed in his mind, a mysterious and powerful, yet gentle force surged once more within Luo Qingfeng's body. However, this time the mysterious force remained for much longer than the previous times, and the enhancement was much more potent than the previous several occasions. Only after a full 5 minutes had elapsed, did the mysterious force within Luo Qingfeng's body slowly dissipate. Is this the power of bone refinement perfection realm? Luo Qingfeng stood up. He clenched his fists, then channeled his chi blood into his right hand. Using all his strength, and even incorporating the might of fierce tiger power, he delivered a punch into the void in front of him. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, bursts of punch wind whistled through the courtyard. The overwhelming power caused Luo Qingfeng to become somewhat intoxicated with it for a moment. Most importantly, his current strength had only just reached the realm of bone refinement perfection. If he continued to improve his cultivation from the bone refinement perfection, advancing to the organ refinement realm, how much stronger would his power become? The more Luo Qingfeng thought about it, the more he began to look forward to it. Although, in these 3 days he had used all his chi blood for cultivation, this resulted in his already limited lifespan dwindling to the last 2 days. But it was not a big issue. He would endure the bitterness now. Once he forcefully raised his cultivation to the organ refinement realm, once he added an extra 20 years to his lifespan, then he would no longer need to worry about this matter of lifespan. In the courtyard of the Luo family ancestral land, Luo Qingfeng's emotions gradually returned to calm. He once again opened his own unique golden finger. Name, Luo Qingfen, lifespan, 2 days plus, cultivation, bone refinement perfection plus 0 out of 500, chi blood, 1330, minus 133, cultivation technique, mortal finest, fierce tiger vigor, comprehension, 30% plus, mortal finest, feng ying steps, comprehension, 3% plus, incomplete. Looking at the translucent attribute panel in front of him, Luo Qingfeng's expression remained calm and steady. To continue advancing my cultivation, I need to use up 500 total chi blood, right? If calculated based on 50 points of natural recovery per day, it would take approximately 10 days. But if the natural loss of 5 points of experience per day is also included in the calculation, then, barring any accidents, it would take about 11 days. 11 days Endure it a bit more. As time passed, it quickly reached deep into the night. At this moment, a full moon hung high in the void. The gentle moonlight spilled across the land, dispelling much of the darkness of the night. On this continent, perhaps the vast majority of people would be fond of a night when the moon is full, because the moonlight drives away the darkness and illuminates the path forward for them. But for Luo Ping, the family head of the Luo family in Qingxi town, this night of the full moon was the time he liked the least in his heart. How is it? Outside a room in the Luo family clan land of Qingxi town, Luo Ping anxiously inquired the Luo family's private doctor standing before him. Family head, I have done my best to alleviate the young lady's suffering, but... The doctor started to say, then couldn't help but sigh, shaking his head somewhat helplessly. But what? Seeing the doctor sigh and shake his head, Luo Ping's anxiety couldn't help but intensify. The doctor looked up, noticed the anxiety on Luo Ping's face, hesitated for a moment, then said, but for some reason, the various methods I have used to suppress the young lady's pain seem to be getting weaker and weaker. If this continues, at the next night of the full moon, the young lady might not be able to bear the pain and could be tormented to death by endless suffering. After saying these words, the Luo family's private doctor silently left. Outside the room, listening to the sounds of suppressed suffering that kept coming to his ears, Luo Ping's face shifted from initial bewilderment and helplessness to a deep sense of guilt and self-reproach. No matter what others thought, from Luo Ping's perspective, allowing his daughter to endure this pain and torment while he was unable to do anything about it, was a display of his own incapacity as a father. Chapter 20, Luo Yui, a unique physique? One Luo Yui's voice, although she was trying her best to restrain it, still reached Luo Qingfen, who was in his own courtyard. He faintly heard the whispers carried by the breeze. Following the source of the sound, Luo Qingfen came to the outside of the room. He could see that Luo Ping, the current head of the Luo family, was standing outside with a guilty expression. Luo Chuan, the current young master of the Luo family, sighed quietly, somewhat helplessly, standing beside his father. As for this room, if Luo Qingfeng's memory was correct, it should be the room of Luo Ping's most beloved daughter, Luo Yui. Especially on full moon nights, the little girl Luo Yui would suffer torments that were beyond human endurance. And today happened to be such a full moon night. Patriarch Qingfen, you. Why have you come? Luo Ping, feeling incredibly guilty, suddenly saw the ancestor of the Luo family appear before him. He immediately went behind Luo Qingfen, lowering his head slightly. Patriarch Qingfen, Luo Chuan, upon seeing Luo Qingfen, also slightly lowered his head, his face showing a touch of respect. How is little Yui doing? Luo Qingfen, with his hands clasped behind his back, silently looked at the house in front of him and asked in a voice tinted with an elderly man's unique intonation. The physicians in the clan say, if nothing unexpected occurs, it's very likely that Yui won't survive the next full moon night. Luo Ping's expression was extremely downcast, and his voice was somewhat hoarse. Not survive the next full moon night? Upon hearing this, Luo Qingfeng's somewhat cloudy eyes suddenly rippled with emotion. In his mind, the image of an extremely lively and lovely, pitifully adorable figure surfaced. Even when little Yui was very young, she would tirelessly stay by Luo Qingfeng's side, follow right behind him, calling out Elder Qingfen with a somewhat childish yet extremely earnest voice. Let's go in and see her. After a long silence, Luo Qingfen said in a low voice to Luo Ping and Luo Chuan behind him. Then he took strides toward the room. At first, he felt nothing. But as he approached the room, the more intense the sensation of an extreme coldness that seemed to penetrate right into one's body, hit him straight on. Daddy, brother, and Patriarch Qingfen, you all came to see Yui. Inside the room, the girl, pale-faced, looking extremely wretched but with a desolate beauty, on seeing Luo Qingfen, whose face was as full of vicissitudes as hers, and whose vitality seemed barely better than her own, a truly heartfelt and dazzlingly bright smile immediately bloomed on her face. She even tried to sit up, eager to have a good chat with her father, her brother, and her great patriarch Qingfen. But with her current physical condition, it seemed she could no longer do so. Yui, don't get up, Just lie down, just stay lying down, that's fine. Luoping saw his daughter's ghastly pale face. His already heavy mood turned even heavier. Daddy, is Yui? Struggling for a while, Luo Yui couldn't sit up. Then she silently looked at her father Luoping, her defeated little face showing a touch of bitterness. Don't talk nonsense, you will be alright, Yui. Luoping spoke with a quiet voice that lacked confidence. Brother. Luo Yui turned her gaze to Luochuan when her father refused to answer her. Luochuan, as the brother, faced such a gaze from his little sister. He turned his head stiffly, somewhat unwilling to meet his sister's eyes. Actually, Yui is aware of her own condition. Though the family doctors haven't said anything, Yui can guess. Elder Qingfen, is Yui? Is she not going to make it much longer? With no other choice, Luo Yui had to direct her gaze to the ancestor of the Luo family in front of her, whom she respected immensely and cherished dearly. Even as she looked up at Luo Qingfen, her eyes mixed with a touch of nervousness, sincerity, and a desire not to be deceived. To be watched with such eyes, with such intense focus, even Luo Qingfen, the ancestor of the Luo family, found it difficult to bear. The family doctors say, if nothing unexpected happens, on the next full moon night, you will likely. As he spoke, Luo Qingfen's voice suddenly cut off. However, even though he did not finish, Luo Yui, the clever girl, understood what the ancestor of her family meant. So, can I live until the next full moon night? Luo Yui muttered softly, then a sincere smile appeared on her defeated little face. Patriarch Qingfen, thank you for not deceiving Yui. As time passed, Luo Qingfen, Luoping, and Luochuan stayed in Luo Yui's room for about half an hour longer before they left her room. Patriarch Qingfen. Outside the room, Luoping, standing silently behind Luo Qingfen, still seemed unable to accept the reality, and asked the ancestor in front of him in a low voice, is there really no way to help Yui anymore? This vast and mysterious continent, Luoping knew a thing or two. For instance, he had heard of spirit pills that could bring the dead back to life and heal bones and flesh. If there was someone within the Luo family ancestral land who could save Luo Yui, that person would undoubtedly be Luo Qingfen, the family ancestor with the longest lifespan and the broadest vision. I don't know, Luo Qingfen shook his head expressionlessly. Just as Luoping was on the verge of despair, Luo Qingfen spoke again. However, if we wish to temporarily save Yui's life, that is not entirely impossible. Upon hearing this, Luoping abruptly looked up, staring intently at the family's ancestor Luo Qingfen. Patriarch Qingfen, what do you mean? But Luo Qingfen did not respond to Luoping's question. Instead, he quietly walked towards the direction of his own courtyard with his hands clasped behind his back. After returning to his own private courtyard, Luo Qingfen sat silently under a stone pavilion. Expressionless, he pondered the matter of Luo Yui's condition. The Xuanyuan continent was full of wonders. He had heard of numerous constitutions with various positive effects and some with negative special effects. But like Luo Yui, who would develop a dense, icy aura in her body every night, especially on full moon nights, when the icy aura became the densest. Luo Qingfen had never encountered such a constitution. Still, based on his past life experience of reading web novels for many years, Luo Yui was definitely not ordinary. If cultivated well, she would surely become a pillar capable of supporting the Luo family. But the most pressing issue was, according to what the family doctors had said, this girl might not last until the next full moon night. This left Luo Qingfen with only a brief 30 days to solve the problem.